Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board meeting. We'll be getting started in about 5 minutes here, but if you would like to give public comment, there's going to be two opportunities on the agenda to give public comment. There's opening and closing. I just ask that you fill out a public comment form. They're up there at the front. If you aren't planning to give comments, but something really speaks to you, feel free to raise your hand and I'll call on you and just fill out a form after. That way we make sure your comments are captured in the record. And it's going to be a great meeting. Thank you all so much for coming.
Yes. Okay, you are.
Hello, everyone on the Zoom. We'll get started in.
Yes, I drive.
It's still got a few people
There.
coming into the meeting. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, and we'll start with the roll. Sheriff Fuji Strickler,
Here.
Member Titzel. Here. Fisher,
Here.
Hinman,
Here.
Keats,
Here.
Doughty,
Here.
Shin, absent at this time. Schaumburg.
Here.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum of the Ward Two Neighborhood Advisory Board.
Audrey.
Yeah, did you read Audrey?
And Audrey,
Oh, and Audrey, geez, I'm so sorry, and Audrey Keller.
thank you so much.
Perfect.
Found again. I'm gonna do the first public comment.
Okay, absolutely. All right, thank you so much, Charlie. We're going to item number A2, public comment.
Hey, y'all, I'm gonna start off, just gonna stand up for a minute because. Yes. We have a number of new NAB members here today, so I just wanted to explain the process if you haven't had orientation yet. And then also for the benefit of the audience. So I'm Naomi Dewar, I'm a Reno Council member for Ward Two. This is the Ward Two NAB. We talk about projects that are proposed for Ward Two. We also talk about special projects that are coming up at the city. It could be a rule change that's proposed, a project that's proposed. I know they came here to talk about the ARPA, which is the American Recovery Act, program grants, all kind of things that are happening at the city get discussed here first, if they can. We have a number of new members, so what I was gonna ask is that if the new members would mind introducing yourselves with just a 1 minute, what area do you live in? You know, what maybe compelled you to ask to join the NAB? And then I just want to say that in November, a big chunk of Ward Two is being split off. It's becoming Ward Six. And some of the members here live in South Reno. And so they'll be given an opportunity to apply for the Ward Six NAB. I'm confident that the new, whoever that is, that ends up being selected in November by election, will have to form a NAB, and it's good to have some people with a little bit of experience, which is why I've gone ahead and added people from South Reno now, so that you have maybe 8 months of experience under your belt before you go to a new NAB. I also wanted to just explain what how the NAB works. The members don't vote on a lot of stuff. What they do is they listen to projects and they give their opinion on forms. Members of the public are also invited to fill out the very same forms. Those forms are forwarded over to our planning staff, and we have here today, one of our members. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name's Grace McAdoo. I'm in the planning department. We also have Jeff Foster here.
And Jeff is back there. So we have two members. They take the comments from the NAB and the comments from the public. They forward them on to the planning commission, which pretty much most of the projects that come here are going to go to the planning commission so that they have a way of getting input on the projects. So there's approval of the minutes vote. There's adjourning the meeting, which takes a vote. Very infrequently are the NAB members called upon to vote on anything else. Mostly what we're seeking from the NAB members is their input. It could be on, again, on a city proposed project, a rule change, a development, an idea. And you are our first reviewers. You're the first people to kind of render an opinion on something. And if you're not the first, you're a very important component. If they got out earlier to some other place first, at public workshop, then the NAB members, they're looking for your input because you are a regular team. And one of the things that I've always hoped for is that you have relationships back to your communities. And that's why I've tried to get people of all sexes, ages, different parts of Ward 2, as diverse as I can, so that you can reach out to communities that you feel comfortable talking to. It might be seniors, it might be Rancher, it might be somebody in South Reno, it might be you're a frequent next door commenter. Whatever you do, I'm asking you to not just listen and give your opinion here, but talk to your neighbors as well to get more engagement and get more knowledge about what the city's doing. So that's the big concept. And before we go on, I just want to see if there's any questions from whether you've been here for a while or you're brand new tonight, just about how this works. Anybody? Okay, well then why don't we start with you, Audrey? You're a newer board member, so why don't you just introduce yourself?
Sure. Sorry. Audrey Keller. I live in Rancher. I've attended several NAB meetings and I like to volunteer civically. So here I am.
Okay.
Nice to meet you all.
Welcome, Audrey.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Roman Schaumburg. I live in Purdy Ranch in South Reno. Been interested in joining the NAB for a while. I applied when I heard there was going to be openings, and I just wanted to do what I can to help the neighborhood and the city.
Welcome, Roman.
My name's Dave Tutzel. I've been to a few NABs, but I'm recently retired and just wanted to, really get plugged into Reno. And this is my hometown. This is where I choose to live. And so I want to know what's going on and have this community have my say
Okay,
in
cool.
how things go.
Welcome, David.
And just a side note, the NABs are the most generalist boards we have. In other words, I serve as a liaison to many boards. An example would be urban forestry, historic resources. I was on arts and culture as their liaison, finance advisory board, the BFAC, which is the building and enterprise fund. I've served on many different boards as a liaison. This right here is the most diverse board because you're not on one topic, you're on all topics. And I just wanted to share that before I got elected, I served on this NAB, Ward 2 NAB. And also another person you may know, Oscar Delgado, served on his NAB, Ward 3 NAB. And another person you may know, Paul McKenzie, served on his NAB. So it's a way to kind of get a broad overview of what's going on in the city. And Ward 2 is so big that when I served on the NAB, they actually had two NABs, one in the South Reno, one in North Reno. We have consolidated those because there's only so many meetings that I can do, frankly. Shout out to Sharon Zadra, who managed to go to those different NABs. But what we try to do is sometimes attend meetings down in the South Valley's library, just to kind of move it around. Most of the time we're up here, but we try to do maybe 2 or 3 meetings a year down there. Sometimes meetings are canceled because there aren't projects and we can push an item onto the next meeting. So that happens too. So that's all I've got for me. I did want to introduce Chief Nance, who's going to do our.
We got one more.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Stan. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, please.
Stan Dowdy, I've been after her for I don't know how long to get on this committee. I'm on the senior advisory committee. And I live just down the street across from Marshall Golf Course.
Cool. All right. Thanks for being here, Stan. And Hal, you're invited to join the table. I'm hoping to,
I'm in a funny situation, you know.
Hal is just temporarily, but here's the thing. If you're serving on the NAB and your time is up, which the Hal's is, then you get to continue until you're either reappointed or someone is appointed in your place. So wanted to bring Hal back up. He's been sitting at this table for what, 2 years at least?
Yeah.
I think.
Exactly.
And then if I introduced everybody now, why don't you introduce your intern as well?
Hello, everyone. My name is Tyler Shaw. I'm a community liaison with the city of Reno, and I'm Vice Mayor Dewar's community liaison. So it's my privilege to run the Ward 2 Neighborhood Advisory Board. And with me here today, I have Rain. She's one of our interns for the city of Reno, and she helps me out with these meetings. So no rioting because Rain's,
And what
Pretty buff.
level of schooling are you in?
So as Sarah said, I'm one of the interns at City of Reno. I'm currently a senior studying public health and minoring in business administration.
Okay, you're senior in
like your
going where?
Oh, wait,
Hey,
oh,
you and I,
yeah, UNR, yes.
Okay, perfect.
welcome.
Okay. All right, well, enough of the introductions. I wanted to introduce next Chief Nance, who is our relatively new police chief. I think you've been here at least 6 months or 8 months.
You're almost.
It was a year in February.
Year in February. Time flies. Anyway,
No, I can't believe it either.
we wanted to get Chief Nance here just so you can get a visual, learn a little bit about her and public comment. And then she's gonna come back at another time and give us the broader, this is my understanding.
Yes.
Okay.
So thank you for having me. It was my goal, one of my goals this year to make it to all the NABs. I did not do it last year. By the time I even understood what the NABs were, we were halfway through the year and there was no way I was gonna hit them all. So that's this calendar year's goal. So thank you, Tyler, for helping me coordinate those. I know my schedule is quite challenging to line up with these, but thank you for having me. So there's a lot going on. A couple things I'm really excited about is the annual report will be coming out soon. So look for that. It'll be posted on Facebook and our social media pages, and we'll share that out also. We're doing a video annual report. We'll have some data also on the website. One of the things I'm most proud of that we were able to accomplish this year is get our public records and crime data and backlog of information that we were about 3 years behind when I got started here. It is up to speed and we are up to date and current. It is an amazing feat. We worked with the city clerk's office, we restructured records and it made it a priority and it happened. So with that comes a warning. So I'm gonna warn you guys all now, you get crime data from us in that. You might see it look a little different. It will be similar, it will be very close, but if there's some changes, keep in mind that we're actually what's reporting through NIBRS, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. And so that will be the data you're getting because we're actually so up to date that I can get it 2 weeks after the end of the month. So it is fabulous. So we were not able to do that before because we didn't have the input systems down, but we have that down. So just notice if you see some fluctuations on the information you're getting, don't panic. It might just be because the incidents are reported differently. So that's one thing I wanted to warn you about. A couple other fun things that we have going on. We have a consulting firm that is working with us on looking at patrol staffing, deployment, and redistricting for us. So we don't follow, police department does not follow the council wards. We follow our own policing districts based on geographical boundaries, natural geographical boundaries, size, places that we need the police to respond and how they can get to different areas. I hired a consulting firm. They're looking at what should our patrol deployment look like so that we have a maximum response to calls for service, especially emergency calls, and also an optimum time to be proactive. It should be about a 60-40 ratio, and we're making sure that we can achieve that. So where do we deploy our resources? What are the hours that they're working? What are their days off? And then how can I incorporate training into that? Because right now I have no dedicated training days for my staff. So anytime I have training, I have to pull people off the street to do that, which leaves a hole, which I'm either covering through overtime or just a lack of services at that point in time or less people. So that is coming out in June or July. One of the things we're doing for that is community meetings. I have 3 additional community meetings coming up. One is on Thursday, and then the other 2 are the following weeks. And the information for those are on the RPD social media pages if you want to take a look and have any sort of involvement in what we are doing for deployment and what's a priority for you. So they're doing community meetings, so spread the word if anybody has any information or wants to share anything. And we would love to have more input on that to make sure that what we're doing actually coincides with the needs. 2 other things real quick that we're doing, promotions. We just had a big changeover in the department. a lot of reorganization and change. We're trying to make our structure match what a police department should look like. We were a little out of whack there and it wasn't quite what it needed to be. Our organizational chart didn't really look like it should. And so we've been really building in this past year, getting that organizational chart right up to speed. So right now, it's myself. I have two assistant chiefs. Assistant Chief Oliver Miller, he's been in the Reno Police Department for quite some time, is promoted through the ranks. And then Assistant Chief Chris Jacobson came in just a few months ago and has taken over one of the lead roles in the department of handling a lot of the issues that we're facing and trying to get some things up to speed. So it's been nice having him there and having another person that can bring in some outside opinions and help me out with some things. And then we just promoted 4 captains. And so that's pretty monumental. We've never had captains as a rank in our police department. So you will see and hear more of that. Their promotion ceremony is on Thursday. And my last thing, I have a note that I wanted to cover because I don't remember. The meetings have been back to back today, just like everybody else. Oh, we're moving. The old police department, I forgot we were moving. It's the biggest one. End of June, they'll be done with construction. They have done an amazing job for us. We've really been pleased with the product. It's beautiful on the inside. It's coming right along. We're about 9 weeks out now. And then we're going to start the process of moving our entire police department over to the new building. It's going to be amazing, and we'll do some sort of ribbon cutting ceremony for everybody to come see. If you don't know, we're moving into the old Reno Gazette Journal building. Being not from town, I hate it when people tell me where something is by telling me what used to be there. Because I don't know what is there now, and I definitely don't know what was there 10 years ago. But it's on Queensley Street. It's 955-911. We changed the address. And we're right there behind the river. It's a great space, very big building, a lot of room for us, and we're very excited for that. And the best part about it is we'll have parking for the public. So you can actually come and see me at my building without driving around the block 22 times trying to figure out where to park. That's the best part. I've got, I think, 60 stalls for public parking, if I'm not mistaken. And that is, 59 more stalls than I currently have. So we can have a party there. We also have a really amazing community room that is in the front of the building. So if you ever came to an event there, come right in off the street. You can come in and we can host trainings. We can host different events. We can have community meetings there in a much better fashion than we could now. So it's very exciting. And so it's a great new building and a new opportunity. And I can't wait to look for that coming sometime over the summer when we do a ribbon cutting and invite everybody in to see our space. So I think that's all I have.
Chief, a quick question. So the community meetings, where are they being held? You know?
One's at McKinley Arts. I'd have to look it up. I can get that information over to you if you want to pass it.
Yeah, it'd be hard to go looking for it. So I'd rather,
On Facebook, but I'll share it with you.
and then the point of them is,
So that's to get the community's opinion on how patrol deployment looks, how their satisfaction is with response to calls, what their expectations are, what suggestions they might have, just kind of to see what the community wants to see from the police department and deployment standpoint.
and will they have virtual on that? Will people be able to zoom in,
Yep.
so to speak?
I had my first one was virtual and that was on Saturday. We have one on Thursday. I think it's at 1 or 1:30, and I know that one's at McKinley. The McKinley Arts Center also has a virtual link option. And then there's one more totally virtual and one more in person that I might be at City Hall, but I'm not 100% sure where
Okay.
it's at.
All right.
And I don't
cool.
know the date or time of that.
All right,
I'll connect with Chief Nance and make sure
Okay,
that
cool.
these are distributed to the NAB members and included in the packet, which will be available to the public after this meeting.
cool. All right, thanks so much for
Anything I
being here.
missed that you need me to cover?
Okay, no, but we do get regular updates from your staff about what's happening in Ward 2, what's going well, where are crimes, what can we do to help, that kind of stuff. So those are, the NAB loves those.
Good.
So, thank
I'm
you.
glad that they're helpful with those. And again, if there's stuff that you want to see that you're not getting in that information packet, or you're looking for something more specific, just let us know. We're luckily kind of up to speed with our data now, and I can actually get some real-time information out that's not taking us a long time to get. So it's one of probably the biggest sources of pride for me in this
Yeah.
year. I know it was a concern for you and I when we first met, and so, but that's working really well.
It really was, and kudos.
We are up to speed, so
Yeah.
it was important.
Thank you, Chief
Okay,
Nance.
thank you.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Before we continue with public comment, Madam Chair, I do have one disclosure to make. Madam Chair, our first item today is public comment. Members of the public may hear, observe, and provide public comment virtually by registering through the following link which can be found on reno.gov/meetings. Is https://links://LINKS://47KEO_Z/. Comments heard under this item will be limited to 3 minutes per person and may pertain to matters both on and off the NAB's agenda. The NAB may not take action upon any matter not agendized on today's agenda. When you're called on for public comment, please state your name for the record and begin speaking. The timer will begin when you say your name and you will be afforded 3 minutes. If you are an attendee in the Zoom meeting and would like to make public comment, please raise your hand at this time. Okay. And Madam Chair, we don't have anyone who's registered to give open public comment in person. Is there anyone in the room who'd like to give opening public comment today? If you would, just raise your hand.
I'm a little confused.
Yeah,
I'm here for Ranchera,
Okay.
Village 7, and do I wait until that item C1 comes up?
yeah. So there will be an opportunity for public comment on each specific item. So if you're here for a specific development, feel free to hold your comments until then, and we'll hear them then. Thank you so much.
Or I will just add, if you have to leave, because I think 1 or 2 people had to leave, you're welcome to do it at the opening public comment. So it's either way. Okay.
Perfect. Okay, seeing none in the room, I do have a few people on Zoom who'd like to give opening public comment, Madam Chair. We'll start with Judy Covert. Judy, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, I'm here.
Right, we can hear you, Judy. Go ahead.
Oh, great. Thank
Go
you.
ahead. All right, you'll have three.
I have 2 comments. First on the Canyons PUD. I know that they want to increase the number of units to 30. I want to know if those actual 30 are all going to be SF3 zoning. I believe the current zoning is SF3, although it changes all the time, so I'm not sure about that. And the Canyons East, how does that affect the 18 condos that I believe have been approved for that property? I think it's all the same owner. And I just want to make a comment on, I think that the county commission has approved that their CABs can now vote on issues. And I would like to see the NABs do the same thing. Thank you.
And I'd just like to comment on that last one. Certainly, you don't have to write all your comments on a piece of paper. You can certainly vocalize those. And it's your way of commenting or voting. You know, we haven't adopted voting, Judy, but I'll certainly bring it up with the NAB organizers. But I want to make sure the NAB members know you're free to comment, vocalize, ask a question, issue a concern, whatever you feel like saying. It's for the good of the order and to educate the other NAB members. Okay.
And Naomi, you know how I feel about increasing all these numbers in the North Damani Ranch High School area. And every single project that's come before the city council has been approved, and then they come back and they add and they add and they add, and nothing has been done for our traffic issue.
Right.
So that's my comment.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for your comments. Up next, we have Werner Keller. Werner, you should be able to unmute.
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You'll have 3 minutes.
Okay.
Please start by stating your name for the record.
Okay, thank you. I have just 2 issues. I'm not opposed to development because that's what you do with vacant lots in the middle of the city. But it seems to me that there's a tendency to downplay the importance of traffic impact. And I would like to encourage the council and the planning commission to make sure that the developer and the related interests submit carefully thought out, not opportunistically timed when everybody's on vacation, but realistic traffic studies, because this lot that it's being introduced tonight really has no easy entry and access. And Ranchera as a community, as an entity, including the shopping center, is already getting pretty crowded. So that's one. Then totally separately, there's a really attractive structure right at the Talbot Gate. And it wasn't clear from the plan that was submitted whether that would be, they were going to try to demolish that and build houses right up to the Talbot Gate or not. It's really important for, I think, the character of the residents to have that structure remain. That's the so-called pavilion. Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you for your comments. All right, last chance for public comment in this opening round. Okay, Madam Chair, I see no further public comment.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for those who gave public comment. Item A3 is going to be approval of the agenda. So Councilwoman Dewar.
Yeah, Madam Mayor.
That we'd like to change to the, order to the.
Yeah. Madam Chair, I received a request to move, item C3 Lakeside Crossing Chevron, that's the Deli Town, to first on the agenda to C1. But that's up to you and this group if you want to do that.
Board members, do we have any comment on moving item C3 up to position of C1 on the agenda? Donna?
I think we should do it.
Okay.
Any
Is that a motion?
comments from the board members?
Stan Dowdy, I think that it would be good to move it up to.
Okay.
I think you have a motion in a second.
Yeah.
All right, we have a motion from Donna to move it.
you were looking for a motion.
Oh.
She was.
Yeah.
Motion.
So with that, Donna, would you like to make your suggestion, a motion?
I move to, item C3 to the first item on the agenda.
Thank you. And then we have a second from Stan.
I move that we,
Second the motion. Perfect.
All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Motion carries. So we will change.
Then you
the-
need a motion to adopt the whole agenda.
Oh, thank you. And then one motion to adopt the entire agenda. Thank you.
Motion to adopt.
Thank you, Patrick.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Great, thank you. Agenda approved. All right, moving on to approval of the minutes from January 16th. Are there any comments or questions or changes to those minutes from January 16th?
January 16th.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Tyler. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, minutes approved from January 16th. Thank you.
And just for the record, the 4 new NAB members who are not at the meeting for January 16th are abstaining from the vote since they weren't there. The minutes are approved.
Thank you, Tyler. Okay, item A5, council liaison
Okay.
report.
Well, it's awkward with everyone behind me, so I'm gonna get up again. I just want to, usually in this part of the meeting, I try to give an update on some current affairs that are going on at the city. The one that's first in my mind is today I had an opportunity to listen to a housing initiatives. It's for affordable housing, for housing, that the city's considering changing their rules. And they're doing a series of 4 public workshops. So the staff have made a recommendation. The planning commission considered it. Planning commission said staff didn't go far enough. And basically, I don't know what the right word would be, Grace, that made it more liberal, more conservative, changed it. Anyway, dramatically changed it. And that didn't have the opportunity of public comment. And normally it wouldn't, but it was such a big change that it was recommended to us by Ashley Kearney, who's assistant city manager, that we table that item and have a series of public workshops to get more public input and then bring it back to council. So what I know is that I listened to one today. They're all virtual. The one today was at 9 a.m. There's one tomorrow at noon. So if anyone wants to log in and listen, about 6 or 8 people asked questions. I was hoping for even more. I think there were more people on the meeting than asked questions. I have proposed in the middle of the meeting via text that they post all 4 of the meetings, which they were recording. And so that other people could hear comments, if, meetings they were not at. And if you didn't have a chance to participate, you could hear what was presented. And that way you could be informed. It's coming back to council on May 8th would be a presentation. And this is a change too. When it came back to council, just what was it, a couple weeks ago, it came in the form of an ordinance adoption. And that's something that I've objected to when we have such big changes to suddenly be presented, here's a 60-page ordinance change, are you voting it up or down? And then we have to start asking all our questions and it takes a lot of time on just something that should be relatively simple. So they're bringing it back basically for a council workshop so that we can give our input on what both the staff and the planning commission have proposed and give direction to the staff on how to amend that ordinance so that when it does come back, it has a better chance of success. They've heard our input early on. So that was a proposal that I made. I want us to succeed. I don't want us to have sort of a kerfuffle. We get there, oh my goodness, we don't know what this is. It's very complicated. There's concern from the public, hasn't been vetted, and then it sort of just dies. And we've seen that a couple times. So I'm encouraging the staff to be more thoughtful on how they bring us stuff, even if it means one extra meeting. Means one extra meeting, but it might save 6 months or a year in staff processing. So that's the goal. I wanted to, there's a lot of things coming up. This NAB traditionally has been very interested in trees like me. And there are a couple of things coming up. Arbor Day is coming up on, I believe it is April 26th. And we're going to hold it in the North Valleys this year. And do you know the name of the park?
Dorothy McAlinden Park.
Dorothy McAlinden Park. We will plant some fruit trees, I think, that day. One of the ideas is we're experimenting with planting fruit trees in a couple places that are what they call a food desert. And one of those places is out at Miguel Rivera Park. Another of these places is at Dorothy McClendon Park. So one sort of central Reno, one in North Reno. The idea is that to encourage people to plant their own trees, to see how trees grow, plant a variety of fruits. Now, one might say, well, what happens when nobody wants the fruit and it all falls on the ground? Well, in that case, we are partnering with something called the Reno Gleaning Project. They have committed to come clean all the fruit. Traditionally, what they've done is the fruit that falls on the ground, they have given that to people that are growing pigs, raising pigs or other animals for use as food. Or if they're picking fruit directly, let's say it's all ripe and no one's using it, they will pick the fruit and they will give it to a variety of food distribution groups, whether it's the food bank or it's a Catholic Charities or any kind of other group that could use fruit. And of course, it all comes at once. So you get a whole bunch of peaches and a whole bunch of apricots and then apples and so on and so forth. I haven't been participating in which trees they're planting, but I will tell you, I am very lucky. I have about 35 fruit trees myself over the last almost 15 years. So I've gotten pretty good at understanding what kind of fruit does well here, how to irrigate it, how to manage it. And almost 15 years ago, I began working with the Reno Gleaning Project to help me manage my orchard. And they have been taking my fruit for years. So the very next day, we have a tree planting project. And that is a community encouraged project. Volunteers come. Usually we have anywhere from 50 to 100 volunteers come. This project is going to be in which park in North Valleys?
I believe it's Panther Valley Park.
Okay. And I believe it starts at, do you know, 8:30 or 9?
I think 8:30 or 9.
Yeah,
sounds right.
so we'll check it out. We have all the equipment, and one of the benefits of coming to an event like that is we actually teach people how to plant a tree. And you would be amazed, we've been doing this now 10 years. We're actually celebrating our 10th tree planting. We planted hundreds of trees, and people always say this, I was doing it wrong my whole life. And it's amazing what the arborists know, how to remove the tree from its bucket, how to release the roots, how to actually lay out the irrigation system, what kind of medium to plant the tree in. Being sure to not plant the tree too low below the crown of the roots. So you learn a lot. It's like a 15-20 minute little seminar. And literally, I would say 3/4 of the people leave going, no wonder my trees didn't live. Now I know how to do it. And so it's really useful. You learn something and you're helping your community. So I want to encourage that. Right after that, or maybe right before, I'm sorry, this weekend, right, is Earth Day. Do I have the date right?
Yes.
Is it Saturday?
I think it's Saturday.
This Saturday, Earth Day is at Idlewild Park. And so usually it's a pretty amazing event. And again, the Urban Forestry will have a booth there. And other, I believe, other city programs, but many, many groups, whether it's solar energy or growing things or ad infinitum, there's lots going on at Idlewild Park this Saturday. I think that's about it. Any questions for me? I just given you some top of mind things that are happening right now.
What date was that, Panther Valley tree planting?
Yep, that's on the 27th, Saturday. I know they like to start early. I always tell them 8 o'clock is too early. So I don't know if they moved it to 8:30 or 9, but it'll be first thing. And Tyler will get that information out. It's also posted on the city's website. Okay, and volunteers are what it's all about. Okay, any other questions? All right, well, that's it for me. I may pop in with some other comments later in the meeting, but we'll move on to the next agenda item.
Thank you so much, Councilwoman Dora. Always great things going on with our trees. I
Yeah.
love it. Okay, item number A6, staff liaison reports.
Hello, everyone. Tyler Shaw, Community Liaison for the record. Thank you all so much for coming to tonight's meeting. I want to start my update by welcoming our 4 new NAB members. You've already introduced yourselves, but we're very excited to have you on board. I wanted to let you all know, as well as members of the public know, that I've attached for your reference a recent presentation from the city clerk's office that talks a little bit about the purpose of the NAB, as well as some of the requirements of the open meeting law. You all the members received a copy of the packet, and if anyone in the public's interested, the packet is posted right now at the city's website. So feel free to take a look and hang on to it. It's got some pretty good information.
How would they find that? Is it posted where?
Yeah, so if you go to reno.gov/meetings, there's a list of meetings that are happening today. And if you look today, you'll see Ward 2 NAB, and there's a little icon next to it that says packet. And you can click on that and it'll download a PDF of the packet. And if, say, you look tomorrow, you just have to go down a little to archived meetings, and it's all the previous meetings. You'll be able to see it on there. And then I did also want to let the board know that members Stephen Schwarzer and Tyler Langdon have decided not to renew their membership on the board. So I want to thank them very much for their service and wish them all the best in their future endeavors. Let's see, the next thing I want to talk about, the Reno Arts and Culture Commission, along with some consultants, is updating our public art program, and we need your input. Share your ideas on how public art can enhance our city by filling out our community survey before April 20th, which is only 4 days from now. So if you're interested, make sure you fill it out. The survey can be found at reno.gov/community/arts/culture/public art/public art master plan update. Or the much easier way, if you just Google Reno Public Art Master Plan Update, it's the very first thing that's on there. And it's got a bunch of information as well as a survey for you to fill out. And then the last thing I wanted to let the NAB members know, I included in your packets the March 2024 crime statistics from the Reno Police Department. So feel free to take a look at those, and we'll be having a representative from RPD at the NAB soon for our regular update.
Fantastic. Thank you so much.
You know, I do have just 2 quick things to add.
Mhm.
One is Wednesday's council meeting. So the council has a meeting about every other week. They are considering funding 50 different events in the city of Reno. All the events are listed in different levels of sponsorship. So just be aware, you know, it's one of the things the city of Reno does to bring the city alive throughout the year. So if you're interested in those kind of things, look for them. And then another thing is that I'm the liaison to the Historic Resources Commission. And they are doing their annual awards on May 9th. It's going to be at the Elm House. We did an amazing event last year. We also celebrated legacy built businesses. I think we had 6 legacy businesses. It was the first time that ever happened. And they just absolutely adored it. Plus a whole bunch of interesting architecture in Reno. And also along with that, you may have seen in the paper that one of the oldest houses in Reno was purchased by the J Resorts. And they, or Jacobs Entertainment, and they, this house dates back to 1860s. They decided to offer the house for $1 to anyone who would like to move it. They had bids. At least 3 people were found qualified that had the money and the space to move the house. Apparently, and I don't know this exactly, they've chosen a person to take the house. And it's fairly close, they said, to the original site. I don't know what that means, if that's a half mile away or a mile away, but it's not 10 miles away. And the new owners would be responsible for moving it and living in it. So they wanted some person to reside there versus turn it into a business or anything else. So that's happening too. And I'm also chair of the Washoe County Animal Advisory Board. And their meeting is coming up, not this Friday, but next Friday. And it is, it's a huge change. We now are partnering with the Nevada Humane Society. Some of you may have seen the Nevada Humane Society in the news for the last year, since last March, April timeframe. A lot of concerns about what's going on there. Now they're coming to this and providing all of their statistics. I've also asked for a meeting or a presentation on what's called trap, neuter, release, which is what they do with feral cats. They trap them, they neuter them, they put them back in the wild so that they're not clogging up the animal system, and they're out there, but they're not reproducing. So that's a big deal in Reno and Sparks everywhere. So, and there's more on that agenda. Check it out as well. One final thing, and I'm also chair of the Debt Management Commission. And one of the biggest things for City of Reno, and I'm gonna stand up for this one really quick, is City of Reno is pioneering a whole new water system development. First in Nevada. It would be taking reclaimed water. So we use the water at our house. It goes back to the sewage treatment plant. It is polished to become reclaimed water that we can use on grass, golf courses, etc., recreation areas. But what we've decided, City of Reno, is that we want to take it a step further and polish it all the way to drinking water. They're doing this in a variety of states. I've visited now 5 installations in California where they're doing it very effectively. And the big shift that we would do is we're looking at taking the Reno Stead sewage treatment plant, taking that water all the way to drinking water, piping it to an area called American Flag, injecting it under the ground. Now it's purified. It would sit in there anywhere from 2 to 3 to 5 years, further polishing in a sand filter situation, and then be withdrawn for drinking water. It would be considered a secondary source. Let's say something happened to a pipeline, terrorism, a outbreak of disease. There would be another water system that would be a sustainable backup supply. We are pioneering this, and I bring it up because at Debt Management Commission, which again, I'm chair, we were asked to review and approve $70 million in bonds to support this project. The city also has $80 million in cash. Total project cost $150 million, which is a lot, which is why I want to bring it up. To build this, build the polishing system, the transportation system, the underground injection system, all up in the North Valley. So presuming this works, which all the pilot studies have shown it does, this could be an amazing type of water source for our rural communities, for Las Vegas, you know, done here first. And we're doing it in conjunction with Tumwa, because we have an issue with sewage and treated effluent. Tumwa needs more water, so we're co-funding it. We're doing 70%, Tumwa 30%, and then Tumwa will be able to filter that into their water system and resell it. So it's really cutting edge for our community. It's been years in the making, but it's becoming true now with this sale, and that's also on our council agenda, is to approve the final sale of those lots. So thank you. Sorry, so much going on.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really amazing. It really is.
It's stuff we were like thinking about
I know,
a decade ago.
2 decades ago.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the update. Fascinating. Can't wait to hear more on that. Okay, now we're going to move on to our business items. We have B1 Regional Transportation Commission, South Virginia Corridor Study. RTC staff will be presenting findings from a South Virginia corridor study that runs from South McCarran Boulevard to Mount Rose Highway. Very interesting. Who do we have today?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Graham Dollarhide. I'm planning manager with the Regional Transportation Commission, or RTC. And I'm here tonight to talk to you about a feasibility study that we're doing, looking at the potential extension of an existing our existing Virginia line bus route further south into South Reno. And we'll also be hearing from Eric Hasty here. He's with Wood Rogers. He's the consultant that was hired by RTC to assist in completing this feasibility study. And you'll also be hearing from NDOT tonight as well. Kim Goodwin is here to talk about a separate study that is being conducted concurrently along generally the same area along South Virginia Street. So next slide, please. So just a little bit of background.
I'm gonna turn down the lights, and just so everyone knows, apparently our regular projector broke, so we're back to one that's probably 10 years old, so it's not the best. Is this right?
Yeah, flip one of those. It should be one of those two.
There you go. I think you're getting some progress. Anyway, we've got it down a little.
So RTC currently operates a bus rapid transit or BRT route known as the Virginia Line from UNR campus down to Meadowood Mall. We are looking at, again, the feasibility of extending that further from Meadowood Mall down south. A bus rapid transit line, a BRT line, is essentially supposed to mirror or be similar in context and composition to a light rail line. It'll have higher frequencies, fewer stops. It'll have prepaid boarding. You know, essentially, it even has dedicated right-of-way or bus lanes in sections of the existing route. And it generally requires higher levels of. We got it, all right. It generally requires higher levels of ridership to sustain it. And so part of what we're doing with this transit-oriented development study is a transit-oriented style of development will go a long way to supporting a BRT style route. And you'll get a little bit better flavor of what TOD means a little bit later in this presentation, but generally speaking, a TOD means a mix of uses, multimodal infrastructure, and generally creates a pedestrian-friendly community. And then, so we've also, so the existing route is highly successful, and there has been a lot of growth to date in South Reno, with more to come, which again is why we're looking into the feasibility of this route. The study area is this dark black line here that you see from Meadowood Mall, generally down to Summit Mall, with the yellow area, yellowish area around it, is a half-mile buffer, which is generally considered a industry standard walkable distance to a bus route. And then NDOT study area is outlined there. You see the logo and the blue area arrows. That is just the right of way of South Virginia Street, so no buffer. And it is only from Patriot Boulevard down to Mount Rose Highway. So that's a little bit of difference there in study areas, but again, you can see how there is some overlap here. So next slide, please. So as I mentioned, we're partnering with City of Reno on this study to bring in some of the land use context here. You know, again, the transit-oriented style development is what will best support the BRT style service. We're also making sure that we coordinate with NDOT because they are looking at the safety of the corridor, as you'll hear later. And so there's going to be some changes to that corridor coming in the future. So between the land use context and the changes to the corridor, we wanted to make sure that we were coordinating to the maximum extent possible. Next slide. So with that coordination piece in mind, we wanted to make sure that we were hitting some of these issues that we identified. Next slide, please. We basically wanted to hit on that there is currently a lack of transit service in the South Reno area. You'll see a map of that later to come. Lack of multimodal connectivity. As you'll hear from NDOT a little bit later too, there's safety improvements that are needed in the corridor. Again, we're responding to existing development that's occurring in the area. So we're supporting regional growth documents that already exist. And then a transit-oriented development style land use will also help address some of the barriers in housing and jobs that you'll see. So with that, I'll pass it over to Eric Hasty with Wood Rogers to get into some more of the details of the study.
Thanks, Graham. Again, my name is Eric Hasty with Wood Rogers, and we're helping RTC out with this. You could go ahead and go to the next slide. This whole presentation too is going to be online on the RTC website, and we also have a link to it at the end here. So if I'm going over a lot of this information really quick, please go on. We have a story map on there that you can go and all the detail of this and really get a feel for what this is. So I'm just going to go over the high level stuff here and give you an idea of what it is. Part of that story map too, there's also opportunities for you to leave feedback in there on our study on this as well. So we'll be documenting that over the next 30 days or so. So when we're looking at the South Virginia Street corridor, especially when we're looking at land use, anybody that's been here over the last 10 years, if they've seen any type of development that's gone on in the corridor, they know there's a wide range of different intensities, some that are more supportive of transit, some are less supportive of transit that have been going on in this. And this is because a big portion of it is because of the zoning that's in there. City of Reno just updated their zoning. There used to be a TOD transit-oriented development zoning designation on this, and then they changed it to the mixed-use suburban, which still allows for developments that are transit supportive to be there, but it also allows for a wide range. And so when we're looking for planning for transit, what types of development are we going to have in this corridor, and how are those going to impact what type of transportation is going to be in this corridor? Next slide, please. Looking at current service south of McCarran Boulevard, there's very limited service. It's kind of hard to see on this, but Route 56 is really the only route that goes south of South McCarran Boulevard. Most of them dead end or not dead end, but go into Meadowood Mall. And so Route 56 runs to the east of South Virginia Street. It only comes into South Virginia Street between Demonte Ranch Parkway and South Meadows Park. And we also have the regional connector, which runs from Carson City, but that only picks up people. It does run down South Virginia Street, but it only picks up people who are usually commuting. So that's in the mornings and the evenings on the weekdays. So transit service, as far as fixed route goes, is kind of lacking in the south. Go ahead and go to the next. Then looking at the corridor and how it's been evolving, right? If you think back the last 30 years, we've really seen a lot of growth in this area, and there's still a lot of remnants from when this was a highway, when this was serving, as US 395. And then we're also seeing some new developments coming in here, right? And so if you think about the transition that has occurred in the last 30 years, if we look towards the next 30 years, what's this corridor going to look like? Right? And so we have identified about 940 acres of vacant land still within the study area. And so that could mean a lot of potential for transit ridership. So looking at the forecast, we're anticipated, Washoe County is anticipated to grow by 100,000 people and add additional 68,000 jobs by 2042. So how much is this corridor going to absorb that growth? And looking at the Truckee Meadows regional plan, they've identified the area along South Virginia Street as a tier 1 land designation. Go ahead and go to the next slide. And then looking at Reimagine Reno, how are they planning for this corridor development? And they've done a really good job. And the council did a really good job of kind of foreseeing this transition period where it's, you're going from this suburban corridor and you're going to this urban corridor, but you don't just get there overnight, right? You have these stepping stones. And so what the Reimagine Reno master plan says is that they're identifying there's 4 hubs within this corridor, right? It's located at Meadowood Mall, South Meadows Parkway, downtown Des Moines area, and in the Sun Mall. And then additionally, what they said as far as this suburban mixed use master plan designation, which is along the majority of the corridor. If you're putting in transit and if you're planning for transit, then we should be putting these areas in these major intersections. So between these hubs and these major intersections, you're gonna want to put your transportation infrastructure in order to kind of connect all of the surrounding regions and neighborhoods and create this these areas of hubs throughout the South Virginia Street. So that's kind of what we did as part of this study is we took that and we took those 6 areas that we have identified, we put it with the multimodal hubs, major intersections, and then we also looked at other things that might impact transit. Existing jobs, where most of the jobs are in the corridor, housing, and then projected population, projected job growth, and then the vacant land. We overlaid those and saw where those kind of lined up. So it's hard to see in this, but the darker areas are typically where most of these things overlap. And so if there's something that wasn't identified in the Reimagine Reno master plan or a major intersection, then we also added those to these transit focus areas. And these are the areas that we're trying to focus on to see if we can put transit supportive development in these areas. And so the 2 that we added was one is located as a Cave Drive, which is going to be right next to if anybody's familiar with that area. And then another one in what we're calling Pioneer Parkway. Pioneer Parkway is a PUD that is yet to be developed, but they will have Des Moines Ranch Parkway will eventually connect through to Geiger Grade. And there's gonna be a lot of potential there for growth. So it doesn't necessarily mean that these areas are going to have these transit stops at them. It's just, these are the areas that we're focusing on as we look forward to the future. So please. All right, so the important of this study is like, how do we plan for this growth? And this is a large corridor. It's 5.5 miles. And so how does this growth impact the type of transit that's on there? And transit is usually associated with ridership, right? So if you're going to have a fixed route, you're going to have a certain amount of riders, and you go on to BRT, you have to have a certain amount of riders, average riders per day, in order to support that type of transit. And the amount of people that you have in the corridor is going to be based on landings and what goes into the corridor, right? And so you have this sliding scale. And so each one of these scenarios that we plan for, scenario 1 is kind of a scenario where we are assuming things stay as they are. They keep developing the way they have been, and what's that going to look like? What's going to look like at the Scenario 2 is we have these transit focus areas where we're focusing transit supportive development along these major intersections, as well as other areas that we identified. And then scenario 3 is really a mixed use urban corridor where it's similar to just Virginia Street in between McCarran Ring. So those are our 3 different things, and each one of these could be throughout any level of the corridor, right? It's not necessarily the whole corridor is going to do this. So we have these different development scenarios. How are we going to serve that development? What are the routes going to look like? So we also proposing 3 different transit routes. The first one is just going from the Meadowood Mall down to Sun Mall, all the way down Virginia Street. Just servicing South Virginia Street. The second one assumes that, downtown Des Moines starts developing as is promised with this mixed use development that's transit supportive, and maybe not so much development occurs south of Demonte Ranch. And so we would then be proposing to pull off of South Virginia Street and going into Demonte to serve that. And then alternative 3 is kind of this, serving everything. If we are going to get to BRT and be able to serve this whole area, then we have this almost looping type of alternative there. So I'm going to pass it off now to NDOT to talk about what is being proposed in the NDOT corridor, and I'll be back to answer your questions.
Hi, excuse me. My name is Kim Goodwin. I'm with NDOT Traffic Safety Engineering. Go to the next slide. I am the assistant chief. I work under Lacey Tislin, who's the chief of traffic safety engineering for NDOT. As Graham has mentioned, we are working on a safety management plan for South Virginia Street. And just for those of you who don't know, a safety management plan is a planning level study with the focus of safety. And my division had identified this corridor based on the crash data. I don't have that information for you at the moment, but I can provide it if anyone would be interested in seeing that, and it'll also be included in our final document. Last week, we had our public meeting, and during that public meeting, we presented these alternatives displayed on the screen. The key point to note is that these concepts can be mix and match. So the primary focus is to look first at what we're proposing as far as the roadway portion, and that's one of the options is 2 lanes with a dedicated bus lane. Another option is center running transit to help support RTC's plans. And also proposing to keep existing 3 lanes or even look at proposing 2 lanes, but leave the space provided for a future bus lane. The other part of that can be mixed and matched is what we like to call vulnerable road users, or which is anyone that walks, bikes, and strolls. Those are multimodal purposes. So with these concepts, with the travel lanes, we can look at adding a bike lane, or we can look at adding a raised bike lane, of course, adding sidewalk, and also looking at considering a multi-use path. Our website is currently up till I believe it's April 26th. So if anyone would be interested in checking that out, we would greatly appreciate any comments anyone has. And that will help us determine what is wanted and needed for this corridor section. And that's really all I have for today. Thank you.
Next slide, please. So I'll just quickly close by saying, again, you see the importance of the coordination that's happening. RTC is both responding to growth that's happening, regional growth plans that already exist, and work that NDOT is looking to complete on the roadway in the near term versus what we're planning for in the long term, which again will be in response to how the land continues to develop, how ridership continues to evolve in South Reno. So last thing I want to mention before any questions is please visit our website, as Eric mentioned. Go to rtcwashington.com. You can scan this. There are flyers in the back here. If you want to go through that story map, you can go over the details a little bit slower and take it all in. There is room for comments, so you can provide your feedback. And please do the same for NDOT's website as well. I believe you can go to their site and search South Virginia Street Safety Management Plan. So that, all questions? Yes.
Donna?
Thank you. The transit service alternative map that was shown, 3 alternatives. What are you going to use as your criteria?
Yeah, that's a good question. So we tried to model this using a Federal Transit Administration approved system and tried to project what would sort of generate the highest levels of ridership, and that's really what it's all about. As I mentioned at the top of the presentation, you know, a bus rapid transit style service requires higher levels of ridership. So we really have to try to focus in on, as Eric mentioned, the nodes or the focus areas where land use develops in such a manner that it could produce higher trip generation. You know, basically have more riders there available. So vacant land obviously won't do it, so we won't put stops all along a stretch of vacant land. So if all of the development shifts over towards downtown Damani, you know, we might deviate from the route. But again, it's gonna be based on modeling, planning. You know, there will be a public process to have outreach. You know, there will be an extensive process to determine where the route is aligned and what types of service go there.
What's the timeline?
So there's no timeline on this right now. Currently, RTC is looking to add some level of service in South Reno. It's called our Flex Ride service, which is essentially a dial ride, essentially like an Uber type of service where it's available to anyone, and it's got a very strict service area. But it's kind of like calling a taxi or an Uber, and that'll be coming, I believe the service starts next month. So that'll be kind of like a pilot to put the feelers out there to see if there is demand in South Reno. From there, you know, obviously we realize you have to be able to crawl before you can run, right? So we're not gonna just implement a BRT tomorrow. So we'll start with this pilot Flex Ride service. Perhaps from there, we'll go to a standard fixed route, you know, just a basic bus route with minimal levels of service or frequency. And then from there, we would continue to just build upon that. So any type of BRT service is probably a long ways off, but like I said, we're starting that Flex Ride.
So does this also depend on the way that the area develops? I mean, is there a way to steer it towards developing in a more transit-oriented fashion than developing where, you know, you don't have that high ridership? And if so, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great point. And yes, we are looking to steer the route towards more transit supportive type land uses where we think more ridership will be, you know, achieved. So as I mentioned, the BRT style service requires those much higher levels of ridership to sustain it. Otherwise, we could just stick with the Flex Ride, or
what tools do you have to shift it to be more transit oriented?
Yeah, so RTC obviously doesn't control land use, so there's nothing there that RTC can necessarily do, but that's why we're trying to partner with City of Reno to maybe look at what can be done in terms of you know, zoning or things like that. As Eric mentioned, the zoning already allows for transit supportive type development, so that piece doesn't necessarily need to be changed, but there could potentially be different tools that could be used on the land use side that would help to support that.
Well, is there any, you know, like the first couple of comments in the meeting today were about development and the traffic that's associated with it. Is there a way when you're looking at new development to limit the number of, you know, this is an apartment and you only have one space or something, or maybe you have no spaces, you know, and you're counting it, because if you build stuff that everybody already has a car and can park, they're not gonna get on a bus, you know, because they don't wanna let go of their car. So how do you help that out?
Yeah, that's kind of the like a big part of this study too, is to see which land use tools are available in these transit focus areas and which ones that can kind of spur that type of development, right? Because the zoning right now is set up where you don't have to, you can put anything. You can go as dense as you want, or you go at least very, very low density, right? And so these land use tools that we're going to be presenting with this study are going to go toward incentivizing that types of development along these focus areas.
So the study will provide recommendations for tools that could potentially be implemented. Again, not you know, it would be up to the discretion of the city or other bodies to determine that, but, we'll look into that as part of the study.
I'm just gonna offer some public input since we're here. Being somebody who's tried to ride the bus many, many times. The stopping at Meadowood and then when 56 changed and went around and the schedule changed in the winter and stuff, really screwed up a lot of people that I know. I'm trying to get down the Patriot. And from my perspective, this transit-oriented development that's designated along South Virginia Street, it's already there, that's what's anticipated, that's where you need to be able to get more than anything else, because everything else is future build out, which we don't know yet. And Damani Ranch Village has money and they can make their own little mini bus to take people to the bus station if they can't walk that far or something like that. I mean, you don't have to be totally responsible for everything that goes on this many miles east, and the whole master plan and the designations are all about, here's the TOD and here's the width around it, and this is where this kind of, and that's already in place. And the revisions to Title 18 already cut back all kinds of parking for anything residential on the basis of we want to get away from being a car-driven city, only we're not because we don't have the bus service, right? So now we're in a situation all along that whole corridor where we have too many vehicles, not enough parking, too much traffic because code has changed in order to encourage driverless scenarios, but we don't have the public transportation. So it seems to me on a lot of levels that going all the way to Summit Mall is almost a no-brainer because that's our immediate need for the next 15 years, I think.
This is scenario one, alternate one here is definitely ideal. You want to keep a BRT as straight as possible, as few deviations or turns as possible.
Yeah, then you don't have your sidelines or center, and those things, it
Right.
all makes sense, and everybody can, I mean, it makes total sense. When you start going around, you want to go do the Damani Ranch Village, because they had this great idea about the village. I think that's a whole separate thing. At some point in time, developers can manage their own internal problems with getting their people to
And
the main
we've
line.
discussed a potential circulator in downtown Damani that can feed into this, that would, the BRT doesn't have to touch it. And also, assuming that we implemented some type of service along South Virginia Street that could presumably come with a reconfiguration of the existing Route 56. So, there's a lot of moving pieces, but yeah, you're spot on there.
I would
Should
like,
we-
I
yeah.
would like to thank Eric, and I'd like to thank you too, Graham, for coming out. For those of you who have additional questions or additional comments, please feel free to, you've got the QR code, you can go to rtucwashoe.com and leave your comments. And then also, if you need the contact information, Tyler can send that out for RTC and for Wood Rogers as well. We'd love to talk about this. It's a fascinating project, and thank you guys for coming out, but we still have couple heavy items we need to get to it. So thank you, everybody. And like I said, if you've got additional questions, go on to rtcwashoe.com and leave your comments. So thank you. And with that, I'd like to move forward to our development projects. As we just stated in the agenda where we moved C3 up to C1, that's going to be LDC 24-00048 Lakeside Crossing Chevron. Would somebody like to turn the lights back on?
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you, Wayne.
So the request has been made for a conditional use permit to allow an existing convenience store gas station and deli to operate between the hours of 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. The 0.84 acre site is located 190 feet south of the intersection of West Moana Lane and Lakeside Drive. This site is within the neighborhood commercial zoning district and a master plan use of designation of suburban. Welcome.
Hi, thank you. Derek Wilson on behalf of the property owner. Thanks very much for moving us up on the agenda, and I'll do my best to be quick. And I think this is a very simple project, so I hopefully will run out of things to say pretty fast. So next slide. So we're just asking for 24-hour use for an existing gas station and convenience. So also a deli inside there. The deli probably won't operate 24 hours, but this would grant them the right to do it if they want. But the gas station and convenience store definitely. So it's an existing business. It's built to modern standards. It has functioning driveways. It's a good looking site. It's an asset for the neighborhood. So all we're asking is to run business hours past the current 11.
And has great food too.
Right, I love the sandwiches there. Yeah, I love the place. Yeah. So no new construction, no changes to the site layout. So visually, you won't see anything change. Next slide. That's a location just a little south of Moana on Lakeside Drive. There are no houses adjacent to the site, no houses that touch the site. Across the street, there is, it's a residential zone. It's one site, one lot, residential zone. It's a daycare center. It's been a daycare center for like 30 years. It was never built as a house. It's never going to be a residence. That residential zoning is there on the map. It's a remnant from the old days. We don't have any houses. The nearest house is over here off of Ward, apartments over here. Next slide, please. That's the site. I think people are familiar with it. Gas canopy store, good parking, little patio. It's a good setup. Next. Master plan is in place for us. No changes needed. Next slide. Zoning, same thing. No changes needed. We're using the existing zoning. Yeah, there's a single family across the street, but again, that's the daycare center. Closest residence is almost 300 feet away this way. The owner who's here tonight has talked to some of his surrounding neighbors, the businesses that surround him. No objections. It seems like everything is in place for that. Next slide. So we're just asking to make better use of an existing business. So I can answer questions if people have them, but I think it's a pretty straightforward question.
Could the owner introduce himself?
Sure, right here.
Hi, I'm Rob Cashel. We own the Lakeside Chevron, Lakeside and Moana. The business now, really, even if we go 24 hours, it won't look any different because even now at night, the canopy is lit, the outside of the store is lit, just for safety reasons and all that sort of thing. So the fact that we open the store shouldn't really change the exterior appearance of it. But we're just looking to use, make more use of the site, a little more efficient and all that. I'm certainly happy to answer any questions or if anybody.
How long have you been there, Rob?
So we just acquired the site.
Okay, I thought,
So-
I didn't think you were the long-term owner, and I've been getting sandwiches there and gas forever. I only live about a block away.
Hopefully you'll continue.
I plan to. Are you planning to keep Deli-town
Oh,
there?
yeah.
Okay, the same people making the sandwiches?
Yeah,
Okay.
Leanne's still there.
Okay.
Absolutely. So my partner and I, Art Hinckley, own 5 other stores as well. We acquired the Shop and Go brand a couple of years ago from the Linscott family. And so we've been expanding that Shop and Go brand. And if you know Art Hinckley and his family, he was the largest Chevron retailer in North Nevada. And he owned all the stores that we see all over Northern Nevada, and he sold that company back in 2010. But I'm happy to answer.
Patrick?
Yes, sir.
Just quick, Patrick Fisher for the record. Is the nearby 7-Eleven a 24-hour operation
It is.
with no fuel?
Correct.
They don't do fuel there. So it's literally in the same neighborhood, just
Yeah, they're
different
sort
corner.
of north, I guess they'd be kind of northwest to us.
Yeah. Okay, that's what I thought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anna?
This may be a silly question. I go there all the time, because I live right on the corner. So, and I buy the sandwiches. And I've never tried to buy gas at night. Is gas open at night already now?
It is.
What time,
What's
11?
The gas is already 24 hours.
Oh, it is?
It is, yeah.
Yeah, so,
Yeah.
so what is the, I'm having a little trouble seeing the huge benefit here with 24-hour operation, given that, what, aside from the deli sandwiches, which are great.
Yeah, which we wouldn't be, the deli wouldn't be open.
Right, and
24.
there's not really a product point in there that is significantly better, different, greater than the 7-Eleven, which is catty corner.
So we,
I'm kind of wondering, like, just
yeah.
what's the motivation to have competing 24-hour convenience stores, right?
So all of our other stores are 24 hours, and it's amazing, the sales and the traffic that does occur, between, midnight and 3 and 4 in the morning. There are people out. And if you were you may not have been in the store this week, but historically, the convenience store there has been pretty limited. We
Oh, have
expect.
you changed it? Because I've been inside.
We've expanded that. So typically, when you would walk in the store, there were tables over to the right and tables over to the left, and the store had pretty much, there was maybe one gondola, I think. So we changed that right side of the store.
Oh, okay.
And so now we have a full product line across 4 or 5 gondolas. And then we've changed all the products. Yeah, I literally just did that yesterday.
Well, Rob, I mean, so having gone there for a long time, they used to have much more, but during COVID, that's when they reduced all the product lines. You couldn't even communicate with the people making the sandwiches anymore. It all went to automated. So what you're saying is you're planning to bring this back, or you are in the process of?
We're in the process. So yeah, like I said, yesterday, we just stocked all the stores. So the store is back in place.
Oh, wow.
And then on the deli side, right now you order through the kiosks,
Right.
3 kiosks. So we'll still offer those 3 kiosks, but we're also going to go to a person facing point of sale.
That's awesome.
So some people, like when they're ordering, they're saying they want to tell you, I want more of this, more of that, less of this, whatever. So whoever wants to use a kiosk can use a kiosk, and whoever wants to go through the line can go through the
Well,
line.
just a quick anecdote. So I was in there probably a week ago. And the kiosk was a little intimidating. There's so many choices. I had to get the register lady to come and stand by me and walk me through the whole door. I'm pretty good with computers too, but it was so many choices. So I'm delighted to hear that you're bringing back personal
My dad
service.
would never, he would have never gone in there and used a kiosk.
Audrey, did you have a question?
Yeah, I wasn't clear. I think I was there Sunday. Are you gonna be closed on Sundays?
They are currently closed on Sunday, and they
Yes, sir.
have been closed on Sundays, but we're gonna be open on Sundays.
So it doesn't say 7 days a week. Is this a change? Is this some sort of a zoning issue?
Currently not operate 7 days a week, but cut off at 11 PM. So this would allow for continuous operation.
So does that come before the city to vote on, to approve?
Planning commission.
Planning commission.
So yeah, we could operate 7 days now. The reason they don't, or that they haven't, is staffing.
Right.
And it really occurred during that COVID period. Staffing has been a real struggle. But
Look, it's incredibly clean. I mean, I think that is a difference between the other local 24-hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very clean, it's very bright, it's, you know.
It's safe.
We continue to operate that way. And all of our other stores are that way. And I mean, we've been in business and almost 60 years in the state, so. Any other questions?
Any other questions? Or? Great, thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you for.
coming out today.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So for the new members, this would be the time, if you just take like 2 or 3 minutes, write down any comments you have. There's actually a form. Tyler will collect those forms. They will go into the planning commission packet. If you have any comments, you don't have to have comments. And the same is true for anyone in the audience. You can add your comments. So.
Okay, thank you. All right, we're gonna move on to Development Project C1 LC 24-00046, Ranch Hera Village 7 tentative map. A request has been made for a tentative map to allow for a 59 lot, single family detached subdivision. The 12.09 acre project site is located on the north side of Falabella Way, approximately 200 feet northeast of the intersection with Ranch Hera Parkway. The site is located in Village 7 of Ranch Hera Planned Unit Development and has a master plan use designation of suburban mixed use. Hello. Good.
Good evening, everybody. For the record, Andy Drilling with Wood Rogers, and I apologize in advance. The projector is washing out our Wood Rogers green that we typically have, so apologies if this is a little hard to read, but I will explain through it. Next slide. So this is Village 7 at Ranchera. It's a tentative map. Village 7 is located on the northeast kind of quadrant of the ranch. I think it was mentioned earlier, this little building here was John Hera's photo studio. It was readapted into the sales and welcome center and kind of corporate offices for the development team. So that's excluded. It's kind of cut out of the parcel, although the parking to the north of it would be included in this tentative map. There's a little parking lot to the south that will service that use going forward. So this
Can
is
you point out the gate? I'm sorry, and
Yeah.
Talbot and all that.
Yes, so this is Talbot Lane comes in, the original gatehouse is right there. Village 1, but villages 1 and 2, which are the homes, the Toll Brothers homes built to the west of that, on the left side of the street. So this is a tentative map for 59 patio homes. on just over 12 acres, again, on the north side of Falabella, inside Ranchero. Next slide. So Village 7 was originally identified as quote, urban residential. That was the kind of zoning designation that's established in the Ranchero PUD. Urban residential, when we conceived of this, back in 2014 was the original kind of maturation of this. Was intended to be the highest density, highest kind of intensity village. It allows for up to 3-story. We anticipated, maybe something like higher density condos or apartments there. And so what's obviously being proposed now is much, much less intense, just looking at kind of how the market has evolved in the last 10 years in Ranchero especially. So urban residential, it does allow for a mix of different uses. It could allow for the single family detached. It also allows for more higher density things. So this little graph we have, or this table we have on the left side there is all the approved units. So on the left side are all the different villages within Ranchero that have residential densities associated with them. All told, Ranchero could have up to 722 total homes within it. Currently looking at kind of all the approved in mostly constructed portions of Ranchero, and adding in the 59 units from Village 7, you'd have a total of 402 units, so much lower overall intensity than what was originally anticipated. So there's 320 units remaining that could be built, but we're kind of running out of space to do it in. So it's definitely Ranchero is coming in as a lower density development than what we originally anticipated. Next slide. So Village 7, like I said, 12 acres, 59 lots, just under 5 dwelling units per acre. Like I said, it's a patio style home. So the concept here is that essentially the footprint of the building, so the building plus some outdoor kind of courtyard patio spaces would be the individual lot that the buyer would buy. All of the remaining area around the lots would then be common area. So if anybody's familiar, kind of up in the Collin Creek area, there's a really nice development up there, Alum Creek. Similar kind of concept. It's a patio home where you own, kind of the structure and your patio space and everything else is maintained by a common association. So, you don't have to maintain a yard or mow lawn, things like that. It's a much more, kind of easy style of living opportunity. So it's a 0 lot line, what we typically refer to it as in kind of planning vernacular, with common open space. Off-street parking is provided at a rate of 3 spaces per home. And then there's some existing trees on the northwest side of the property. Those would be preserved as part of this. Next slide. These are 1- and 2-story models. So each model is, there's 3 models, each model is single story. And then there's an optional kind of 2nd story. And so, we're not sure exactly how many people will opt for that optional 2nd story, but generally 1- and 2-story homes. There is some additional height and setback requirements along the north and eastern sides of the property. That was born out of when, back in 2014, when we came through originally, some of those office developments along there didn't want to have, their views totally obscured by what could have been 3-story condo buildings. And so there was built in this height to setback ratio. So we're honoring that with these lower level homes. All the common areas will be landscaped and maintained by the homeowners association. And then there's some shared driveways. Each of these units doesn't necessarily front to the main street. They front on, the garages are off of kind of a shared drive, so you get a nicer street scene. Next slide. So this just kind of shows, essentially there's Falabella is this street along the bottom here that serves Village 6A and 6B to the south. So we have one kind of common loop road, your kind of typical local street, sidewalk on both sides of that. And then off of each of these, you'll see these little kind of stubbed, little shared driveways, kind of shared alleys that the garages would serve off of. So it's a little bit nicer street scene that you get from the street in that case. Each unit has 2-car garage, and then there's additional surface parking that would be provided to make up the 3 parking spaces per unit. Next slide. That concludes my presentation, so definitely happy to answer any questions.
Audrey.
Hi, Audrey Keller. Hi, Andy.
So does the developer intend to maintain the sales pavilion as offices, or is that because of 59 homes, if you said there were 120 or 150 residents, 0.5 per? It seems like as a resident, there are insufficient facilities. Question one, what's the use of the sales pavilion? And question two is, that green space looks awful small for open space. How much land is that, the open space area that you showed on, maybe you could put the map back up? Yeah, that green space, the open space for that community?
Yeah, so there's open space, maybe I'll answer that one and I'll go back to the
Yeah.
pavilion question. So there's open space throughout, pathways that would also go throughout here. Total common area is 6 acres, so out of the 12 acres, 6 acres, but that does include some of those shared driveways and things. So I'd have to get back to you on kind of what the total landscaped area is. I don't.
But what's
know.
this little part?
Exactly, yeah.
This is drainage basin. That's
So
actually,
that's not a
So
park.
that's not,
no, it's a detention basin. So it's open area, but it's a it's already built. It's there already floating.
Mhm.
It was built as part of Villages 6.
Okay.
And A and B.
so you were gonna go back to what is the
Oh, the
intent of
pavilion.
the sales
Yeah, the
pavilion?
pavilion is at this point intended to stay. It is, to my knowledge, not going to be used as an additional recreational amenity, although that could be. There is definitely, clubhouse facilities are allowed in all the villages, and we did that for a purpose because there was some thought at one point. But at this point, it's still being used as offices, and to be honest, I'm not sure, kind of looking into the future, what happens with it, other than, it's being carved out to remain as part of this.
Okay, and then earlier they mentioned the traffic study, which I think is very important. I believe the original traffic study was done during COVID.
No.
No?
No, it was prior to COVID.
Well-
So this development, we originally started in 2014. There's been some amendments since then, and the
Yeah.
traffic study was updated. But the traffic study was based on the 722 units plus all the commercial. I don't have actually, if we go back.
So what's gonna happen with the traffic? You're not allowing any traffic to go out the current driveway that takes you outside the gate without
Correct.
going through the community. So you're blocking that access point or exit point with the house.
Yes.
And there are no access points on Sierra Rose, which would alleviate all those cars going out Sierra Rose. Because there's quite a bit of heavy traffic coming up and down Talbot, and it's fast traffic, especially during the week when all those medical buildings are full. So that's my,
Could you explain this
question.
though? Since some of us don't live there, what is the access?
So Ranchera, the residential portion of Ranchera, including the club at Ranchera, is a gated community. So all of this is behind the gate. So access to it would come through one of two gatehouses. There's one off of Talbot and another gatehouse off of Kitski on Ranchera Parkway, I think it's called. So all of this traffic would go through the gatehouse and then, or, either to Talbot, which gives you Talbot as an option, or Sierra Rose as an option, or it could come down Ranchera Parkway and exit out Kitski.
Question.
Yeah.
Roman Schomburg, for the record, are there any planned or existing, access points for emergency services or first responders outside of the two main, access points?
Yeah, so we've got, there are two means of access into this village off of Falabella. And then off of Falabella, there's two additional accesses that go south that connect back into Ranchera Parkway. So yes, there is two means of access in and out of all parts of Ranchera. Which means, fire code.
Right.
Patrick Fisher for the record, and just a disclosure, I am a social member of Ranchera. Don't live in the community, but do have a membership. I'm concerned about the sales pavilion parking. There's probably 5 or 6 spaces there maximum. There's not a lot of space. So the elimination of the parking lot that currently serves the building and putting housing there pretty much eliminates any sort of commercial use for that facility. It would have to be a walkable amenity for the members of the community,
No, great
not
catch, Patrick,
something
yeah.
there just wouldn't be enough parking.
Yeah, but there can be. And so we actually have submitted, not formal plans, just, a concept to the city to show that we can construct, as a professional office, because that's kind of what it's being used as now. As a professional office, you would be required to have 16 parking spaces. And so we have, a concept plan that you can have 16 parking spaces in that area. So you're right. Right now you can't, but it would have to be expanded in order to provide some of that.
And I was just in the community earlier today, it's garbage day. And on some smaller roads with 6 houses on them, they have to bring their garbage cans all the way down to the main road.
Yeah.
Because the garbage truck can't fit in the. So are there community garbage collection areas in this plan, or is everybody gonna have a garbage can that they have to take down the street in the snow in the wintertime?
Yeah, so that would be, that's pretty typical of this type of development that, yeah, you would wheel your coder down to the kind of main loop street. So we try to kind of have these as all short driveways. Some of that again is dictated by fire code that you can't have very long, narrow, shared driveways like that. But yes, that is pretty typical of this type of development.
Okay.
And I guess because it's part of a, homeowners association, they're privately, plowing streets and things like that. So that would be part of that as well.
Right. Thank you.
Yeah,
Are the main roads within the development City of Reno roads?
they're all private streets.
Private streets. The size will accommodate garbage
Yeah.
and fire, everything like that?
Yep. Yeah, still built to kind of a typical City of Reno standards, but just maintained by homeowners association.
There's some questions over on the side of the room.
Yes. Are you done with board comments? Madam
All the
Chair?
green space, you said, is all maintained by the homeowners association?
Yes.
So, for the record, Terry Iaconis, I'm a Ranchero resident.
Another question?
Audrey, go ahead.
Yeah, Audrey Keller, I am a Ranchero resident. Is this going to be broken off as an individual HOA like the villas are inside Ranchero? I'm just looking.
We're not. I'm the only one, yeah. I don't know that answer, to be honest, and maybe to your point. It could be it may likely be a sub-association because of the shared driveways and the common open space in there. Probably typical to Village 4 behind the club. I think there's a sub-association there that maintains those, so.
Thank you.
Maybe I misspoke a little bit, still maintained by a homeowners association, maybe a sub-association on part of Rancho.
Yes, that's all, just not ours.
Yeah, I mean, they would still be paying, they would pay both, right? They conceivably, they would pay into the Master Association of Ranchero for common maintenance, and then also their sub-association for the maintenance of, their little private driveways and.
Michael Gratz?
Yeah, Karen Preston, I'm also a Ranchero resident. What are you looking for in terms of pricing of these homes? Any idea of the range?
I don't know, to be honest. It's always tough to tell because at this point, this is a tentative map process. Assuming this gets approved by the planning commission, we then have to go through the final map process. That takes 7 to 9 months. And then you can actually commence construction on the roads and everything. So you wouldn't see a house here for a couple of years probably. So always hard to guess pricing 2 years from now.
What would it be today, Andy? How about that?
I don't, to be honest.
Are we
I
thinking
don't know what-
500,000, 700,000,
Well,
million?
probably think most of the stuff in Ranchero is over $1 million.
Okay. I didn't know since these were smaller patio homes, if it might be
Well, they're
different.
2,500 square.
Oh, I see.
It's just, you don't own a lot of lot, right? You just kind of have a home, on there with some patio spaces.
Okay, well, that helps.
Yeah.
Dave Pitzel for the record. So, excuse my ignorance here, but who is responsible for addressing the increased traffic that Talbot and McCarran and all that is gonna see from these homes and How was that?
Yeah, no, good question. So, there was a master traffic study that was done for Ranchera, that took into account the full build out. So 722, and actually Tyler might go on right there. So 722 homes,
Can you give me some perspective here? Like, what's the edge of the yellow there? What road is that?
This is actually Lake Ditch is along there. There's no roadway connections, to the west. So Talbot, the gatehouse on Talbot is the north kind of entrance. And then the gatehouse on, the south here is Ranchera Parkway that is served off of Kitski.
And where's the retail commercial?
Yep, it's that, the village at Ranchera is here, so, you know, Chewy's and.
So all that color gets out of your development only through those two areas?
Correct.
Ranchera Parkway and Talbot?
The residential portion does. The north commercial has its own entrance to Kitski. The south commercial exits to, you know, that shared roadway as well. And so master traffic study was done for the full build out, so 722 units. Both of the commercial properties, here and here, which I will tell you, the north commercial developed at a much, much lower traffic generation than we originally anticipated. So the uses that are in there is congregate care, so it's not assisted living, but it's, you know, darn near assisted living, and a memory care facility. Both have, you know, very low traffic generation. And then there's the Schwab Bank and then an empty pad. So much less traffic being generated out of north commercial than we anticipated. About what we anticipated coming out of the south commercial, because that kind of is, you know, similar to what we thought of. And then, you know, going back to, well, actually this slide where, you know, 722 residential units, and we're probably, you know, somewhere just north of 400 units. So it's a much less intense development than we originally anticipated. And so that traffic study had a number of improvements that were done as part of it, you know, turn pockets on Kitski, some additional turn pockets and things on Talbot that have all been completed at this.
Michael?
Michael Gratz, I live on Greater Road Drive, which will be facing the new project. I questioned the traffic study only because I live in Cantera, which is right in the center. So we have a lot of through traffic coming from these areas, including from Latigo, which was just finished on the right, on the eastern side to Cantera. So the traffic study was done, but nobody drives on Ranchera Parkway. They all drive through the neighborhood. The roads are very narrow. As you observed already today, if there's one garbage truck on those roads, you cannot pass. I mean, the roads are so narrowly built that barely two cars can pass each other. So if there's somebody parked, whether it's a vendor or a contractor on the side of the road, you will not be able to get to your house, basically. So I believe that the 59 units you're proposing, I know I've been facing those. I think they're too dense. I think the roads are way too narrow. And this reminds me of the villas that were just finished, where the driveways are super narrow, they're super dense, and basically allows almost no guest parking. So if guests come, if you have 2 or 3 or 4 cars come to your house, they will literally park on the street and block your driveway. That's kind of what's going on currently. I'm for the development, I'm not against the development. The density is too high and the roads are way too narrow. And I've lived there 2 years to experience that. And if the snowplow comes, you wait until they're done plowing the road. So the roads are way too narrowly built, in my opinion. But that's my comment.
Is there ever any thought of having some entryway on that street that comes down the back, Windy Hill, and cutting into, you know, behind?
Del Monte,
Yeah.
no, we're prohibited from having access to Del Monte. That was something that was a very sensitive issue when we came through originally to kind of the homeowners in the Del Monte area that they didn't.
That just seems like that's building up a little bit of that traffic, because it's a mess. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Stephanie Bundin. I live in Ranchera, and in fact, I live on Bearwood Trail, which is the street just directly across from the pavilion. And like other people have mentioned this evening, I really am concerned very much about the traffic going in off of Talbot, or trying to leave the development, going out Talbot, and then going out onto Kidsky. I was making a left turn onto Talbot to come back into the development a couple days ago, and I actually counted 19 cars waiting to make a left turn off of Talbot onto McCarran. And if you've ever tried to get out past the little village onto Kidsky, you can wait there quite a bit because there's so much traffic on McCarran that regardless of how much traffic is generated within Ranchera, you can't get out because there's so much traffic on Kidsky. You wait. So again, I agree with everybody. I think that perhaps it would be a good idea to reevaluate that initial traffic study, taking into consideration not just Ranchera, but the amount of traffic that's generated off of Sierra Rose, with all those people coming out of Sierra Rose, all those doctor's offices, who then make a right turn onto Talbot and then are trying to make a left turn on McCarran. And the traffic generated from the village and from the homeowners who are trying to get out and make a right turn on the Kidsky. So I have no problem with the development itself, although, you know, again, I'm kind of with the other people who mentioned that if somebody, you know, particularly with construction going on here, if there are big trucks, you know, it becomes a one-way street and you have to wait for somebody to get around somebody else. But anyway, as I say, have no problem with the development itself. Just am really concerned about trying to get in and out of our two access points. Thank you.
And you don't know how we like to beat our traffic stuff. My question is, based on the comments that we're hearing from the existing residents who've lived there 2+ years, when you guys submit this tentative map, I'm assuming that the city of Reno, the fire department, also gets to review this project. So with what the residents are saying, and when they're saying that the cars are stacked 19 deep, I'm trying to turn left onto McCarran. You know, we also know that Sierra Rose gets also pretty convoluted with the cars that are parking on the side of the road towards the medical offices. If there was a medical emergency and you had a fire truck that was trying to get into the unit during peak traffic hours, I mean, we don't all have a crystal ball, but how does that work if these fire trucks can't get in because people have nowhere to go to pull over to the side of the road to allow the emergency vehicle? I mean, you don't have the answer to that, but I think that's something that it needs to be brought forward or have a discussion with the fire department about existing traffic right now, parking on the side of Sierra Rose, issues with trying to get in and out of Talbot and McCarran. So, you know, and if, you know, if there's garbage trucks and if there's snow plows, I mean, so I guess basically it's just with the convolution of the traffic currently and then emergency services, I think that's a big issue that the fire department is gonna have to review. And then perhaps it is time to go back and have another traffic study done based on current traffic conditions and, you know, current residential cars.
Yeah, no, and I mean, to the point of, you know, yes, they are narrower streets. That was kind of by design. They, you know, Ranchera Parkway in particular is narrow and was kind of meant to, you know, be more reminiscent of kind of like a meandering country lane. I mean, that was, you know, it's kind of part of the design aesthetic for the ranch. You know, a lot of those streets aren't supposed to have parking on them. You know, I get that, you know, maybe during times of construction and, you know, homes being built that, you know, contractors may be parking there and things like that, but, you know, longer term permanent conditions here, you know, a lot of those streets weren't designed for on-street parking, maybe to address some of those, you know, concerns. You know, with respect to the traffic study, you know, the master traffic study was done. This is infill, right? I mean, everything around it was more or less constructed, so it did take into account the existing traffic generated from the medical offices, things like that. You know, we do traffic impact studies for developments like this that look at the, you know, direct impacts in the vicinity. That's where, and forgive me, I'm going off memory here because it's been many years since I've had to give this spiel on the traffic, you know, kind of master traffic study. But, you know, there was some pretty significant improvements that were made at the Talbot intersection, lengthening of the turn pockets on McCarran. I believe there's double left turn lanes now off of Talbot onto McCarran. That was all restriped.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
And it's not even
a true turn lane. It's a green light that you can turn after the incoming traffic has gone through.
Forgive me, it's, like I said, it's been several years since I discussed that. And then down on, on Kitski, there was also some, turn lanes and things like that were constructed as part of that. Looking past that, all the development that occurs in here pays regional road impact fees. Regional impact fees are the mechanism that we use for concurrency of our traffic planning, so that, it deals with the cumulative impacts of kind of the general growth of the region. So it's not just Ranchera that's paying into that, it's every kind of new development that occurs in the south area of town is paying into that, and then RTC has that kind of as a big bucket of money that they're able to go around and make improvements throughout, throughout the region as they're warranted.
Can I ask a follow-up question? Is there a reason there's not a separate gate for those 59? Why would they have to go through Ranchero to get to, let's say, the club or the village? Why wouldn't they just be able to exit through their own gate?
Well, I mean, it's all part of that master plan community, right? I mean, it's all of the residential goes through the two gates. So it's one large master plan gated community. There's actually not access potential on Sierra Rose. The office parcel has, the offices that are on Sierra Rose there have a parcel line that goes out. There's a strip of land that is actually office land. So they don't have access to Sierra Rose. So all the access does have to come through the ranch itself, which it always has. I mean, looking back to John Harrow, the Talbot was the main entrance to his ranch.
Yeah, Andy, I have just a couple quick questions. So on a lot of the developments, we're talking about the orange. When they have the narrow streets and no guest parking, I always bring this up. So an example would be Bondi Lane, where they had 11 homes, no guest parking. They had to basically guest park onto somebody else's property, which was shopping parking lot. So I'm always asking for these kind of developments. I like the concept, but what I don't like is that all 59 of them are gonna have family celebrations, birthdays, holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving. You're gonna have at least one person over, if not 10. My curiosity is, where do they park when they have events at their house? Where in entire Ranchera can they park?
Sure. So, I mean, we are meeting or exceeding code with the 3 parking spaces per home. And then Ranchera obviously has the club facility with a large parking field,
Well, 16, you said potentially, but there's
16.
16 parking spots at the pavilion? Or are you wanting them to?
That's for the office use of the pavilion.
Yeah, but are you wanting them to walk to the club?
I mean, that's conceivably, right? I mean, it's a pretty compact.
Okay, well, and are golf carts allowed in here? Is that the idea?
I think so.
Okay, well, I have advocated that whenever you have cluster development like this, you need to set aside some areas to park. For guests, for repairmen, for anybody that, your power goes out. You have 3 parking spots, but typically the family might have 2 cars already, typically. And it's just not enough, what I've observed, how people live. So I would love to see you address that in some way. Maybe it's a combination of taking out a couple of units at the north end of the pavilion and restoring some parking there, because if you really want the pavilion to be used as a gathering space, you have to allow some kind of parking. I mean, I'm assuming it wouldn't just be for the use of these people, but something larger, a different kind of venue than the clubhouse. Okay, more casual, maybe a group meeting, a HOA meeting or something like that for this little HOA. So that would be my suggestion, is create some parking that could support the pavilion and also support the residents. Number 2 question, the trail that you mentioned going out to Del Monte, is that done and open and accessible?
I believe so.
Okay.
Along Lake Ditch and then.
Yeah.
Yeah. I believe so.
Because last I had heard it was still gated off. And I know they opened up to Ranchera finally. And they opened up finally, I think, to the Wheatland Park, the school, Huffaker School, I think. Okay, but these are
Yes,
things
still,
that
yes,
need to
yes,
be
yes.
checked out. Those are requirements from the previous development.
Yep.
And then finally, I had heard, and this is a complete rumor, so please forgive me, but I had heard it said enough that I want to ask it here. So I had heard that the Lake Ridge site, right, which I don't recall how many acres that is, 3 or something. That whatever was happening, there was gonna be a joint club effort between these two properties. I even heard it as recently as last week. So is that still
I
pending?
have no idea. Yeah, I have no idea.
Okay, well, that'd be a common question. I guess my fourth one is, did you already do a meeting with the existing Ranchera people, or is that to come?
No, we did not.
And are you gonna have something
We
else?
hadn't planned.
Okay, well, they may want to request one, and I just want to let everybody know that's here. You can of course attend the planning commission meeting. This is meant to be informal, so we go back and forth, people get multiple chances to talk. We're not on a strict clock, although we do appreciate brevity. But, at the planning commission, you do only have 3 minutes. You do have to be concise and specific. I do recommend that you send a letter in advance. And then let me just one more process question. The planning commission will come out with a recommendation. If, approval or denial or a decision. And that can be potentially appealed, not recommending that, but to the city council, right? So I just want people to know process, okay? All right, thanks.
Madam Chair, we have Christine Speed registered to give public comment on this item.
Yes.
Just a
Can I-
quick question, Roy Cage for the record.
Not this slide, but another slide.
Water, electricity, gas, sewer,
Not that one.
the stuff's already in there. Yeah,
That's that one.
all the infrastructure, most of it's in Falabella. There is I think it's a sewer line that goes out, connects to Sierra Rose. But yeah, all the utilities are in the ground. Okay. Or in Spandor stuff.
Everybody, Christine Speed. I live here. And this is Dapple Gray. And there is one set of houses here. And this is a new development called Latigo 2 here. And this is Falabella. And Latigo 2 can take Falabella to here. But when they come into Ranchera, they use this little tiny Dapple Gray Street. And it's very tiny. 2 cars can fit in it. And we have red curves everywhere because you're not allowed to park. There is not enough room to park. And so, let's see, Dapple Gray, here it is, Dapple Gray is becoming a through street. It's becoming a little thoroughfare for the poor people in Latigo 1 who are totally boxed in back here. I mean, they are so boxed in. And when I pass on Sierra Rose, I see a road here. It's not paved, but it goes all the way down to Sierra Rose, and I don't know why you couldn't make a new gate right here. And I don't know what to do. This is a failure already for Latigo 2. If I were there, I would be livid that I'd have to go through here, come around here, or then there's a real wiggly way to get in here. They're stuck back here without a real thoroughfare. And what I'm afraid of is here, you've got this little driveway here, and this group, this 57, is going to come down Dapple Gray Way to get out, to be able to get out to Kids to go.
That's right.
And this just ain't a throughway street. I'm sorry. It's red curb and it's just 2 cars wide. It wasn't designed to be a through street.
Andy, is there like some arterial through here? Is there planned or existing?
No, certainly not arterial.
Well, what would you call it? Connector?
Yeah, I mean, they're essentially local, they're all local streets within, even Ranchero Parkway, is, more or less a local street. I mean, it's not carrying, a ton of traffic in the grand scheme of things. To your point, there is a roadway, it's the sewer maintenance road. So it's only about 12 feet wide, and it's a requirement for access to the manholes and things like that, to clean them out and things like that. That's a city requirement, city utility requirement.
You can't put a road on top of it?
I mean, it had, no, we can't. I mean, again, going back to, we don't have access, we have access for utilities crossing of the property to Sierra Road, but not for road.
And so, I mean, in terms of just the traffic development right now, this is a failure. This is a failure.
So Andy, I
And
think
I'm
that,
getting all, the poor people, I see them and then they take a right and they go back in.
Yeah.
And there's a whole lot of traffic and it should not be my traffic.
Yeah.
They don't live on my street.
so let me add, Andy, I think just, what you're gonna hear now and at the planning commission is how is the place developing quality of life? If they have 19 cars stacking to get out to Talbot, I don't think that's what you anticipated. So do we have to modify the traffic light at Talbot to have a longer turn? Do we need to add a dedicated left turn lane? These are the things that as the development matures, regardless of how many houses, it's today's world before any more is added. So that, I just think it would be proactive of you to think about those issues. You're a great planner and you understand, people's real life, how they live. And they're sharing with you how life is living there today. And so it's something to bring back to the owners and talk this through of how to, your goal here was to make a premier development in the middle of Reno. And so that's why you did the trees. That's why you kept the house.
Yeah.
You did a lot of things to make this better than others.
Yeah.
So this is something they're just sharing. It's only one issue, really.
Yeah.
It's all the same issue.
Up next, we have Terry. I don't know how to say your last name, Terry. Oh,
I just gave you, because I already
Okay.
asked my questions, I just gave you the form.
perfect. Thank you.
Donna?
Terry.
I have a question about the, well, I have two questions, so I'll ask you again. First is, I'm not seeing any real percentage of open space here.
Yep.
I know you said 6 acres, that includes all the concrete. I don't think that's actually the intent of code, and I didn't look at your community, I don't know what it actually says, and I know that whatever it says supersedes code requirements. But I'm not seeing enough space there to count as open space and the other kinds of amenities we're supposed to have in the middle of the cluster zone area. So,
Yeah, so maybe it's, it's all of these pathways that are going through, it's these little green belts that are between there.
yeah, I see those.
If you look, I mean, this is kind of because it's, the residential housing type that it is, the patio home. If that were a more traditional home, you would have backyard fences
Right.
and that would be in people's
Right,
backyards,
so
but we're
that's not-
opting to not have that, it's a different,
I thought you said that's a drainage.
It is.
this is a drainage basin.
Space, okay, and the middle, anyway, I just see the chunk with a very short strip of walking pathway through the very center of backs of the houses, that's all I see.
That's it.
So if there's something else to be seen or some other.
Keep in mind, right, I
acreage,
mean, Ranchero as a whole, there is a large club with big ponds and
Yeah, but you
grassy
can't really get
areas.
there. So.
There's walkways that would take you all the way there. We have interconnected pathways that, Ranchero is 140 acres. It's not a very big master plan community in the grand scheme of things. And so it's a very walkable community with pathways and sidewalks throughout.
So
So
that was just a.
while
comment.
this
You
might
said
not
there were
have-
6 acres, but you didn't know how much of that was actual open space versus the concrete. So that's a question, I appreciate an answer to that when you next present or something, if you actually have that information.
Yeah, we got it.
Helpful, because, okay, 12 acres, there's 6 acres of non-developed, we have to sell driveways. There's that. I have concerns about fire access, and when the fire comes down the mountain towards Ranchera, we know what's already happened south of there with people not being able to get out. So I personally think there's already too much built. I think when the fire comes out, there's evacuations. You've got too many people locked in here. I think that's a big problem. Understand there's a massive master plan of PUD that tells you what's already been committed. But along those lines, I'm kind of wondering, and I'm not that familiar with the details of this development, so kind of wondering how the motivation came about to reduce 310 units to 59 units and call it good, and then at which point there'll be a little chunk of something somewhere in the PUD where you'll come up in front of
planners and say, yeah, but we're allowed to have 722 total units and try to shift those units that aren't being built here so that your total number stays within the PUD requirements. So where is that open land? I don't know, the equestrian center comes to mind. And things like that. And I'm having a little bit of a struggle with thinking that you had permission to build 310 units and then, oh, I know, we'll just do 60 instead. To me, all I'm hearing is those extra units are gonna show up again sometime. I'm unaware of that.
I mean, ultimately, it's the developer's choice of what they want to spend their money to develop, you know, and so
Sure.
they opted, they felt like the market wasn't there for three-story condominiums on this location, and they thought the patio homes is something that would have a much broader appeal to the market at large.
Well, undoubtedly. I mean,
So that, I mean,
community situation, but I mean, where else in this area is there available space to build? I mean, that's.
Will you be built out, Andy, when you finish this, or is there open village stuff?
there's no, I mean, the equestrian center and the event center still have some ability to have units in there.
How big is the equestrian center area?
7 acres.
7 acres. And so in 7 acres, you could put in, you could end up stacking up another.
But it's zone PGOS.
It's its own equestrian center. And it has.
Can they?
That was Christine Speed for the record. Is there anyone else who'd like to give public comment?
I've got just one more question. I'm Karen Preston, the chair resident. Andy, what would it take to do a new traffic study? How could that happen? Because I think it sounds like, given that the study was done 8 to 10 years ago, and what we're telling you is, it seems like it's different. What would it take to have that happen?
We'd probably need to discuss that with the city and RTC, because at this point, I mean, you know, we did the improvements that were the direct impacts of Ranter, and a lot of that was built upfront. And so what we may be experiencing is kind of, you know, regional growth that's occurring, which then would fall in the bucket of, you know, RTC and regional road impact fee type projects. So that would be probably something we need to talk with both the city and RTC.
I would recommend.
Well, there are planners here, just so you know, we have 2 planners and they're listening. I mean, there's a reason they're here, right? They want to do, well, Grace is left, but Jeff is here. And one of the things they do at these meetings is they hear your comments and you have to write a staff report, right? And you have to work with the developer and try to incorporate. And I think what's going on here, Andy, is that there is a theory 2014, 10 years ago, and then 9 years ago and 8 years ago about what this would be like. And now we have reality, people living, and they're reporting a different experience. And I think that's all that's happening, is that we have a theory of planning, and then we have the real life, what's happening. So that's what I think they're asking you to take into consideration, Jeff.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, should we wrap or?
Got more public comment from Michelangelo.
Okay.
Really quick. They take all night. Thanks. I just have 2 questions and then a follow with it. So you said that our meeting code in terms of 3 parking spaces for food. Does that include the garage or is that outside of it?
It's a garage.
Yeah, garage and service station.
So essentially 2-car garage and then 1 outside.
Yes.
And how big are the homes?
2,500.
Yeah, 2,000, 2,500 square feet. They range.
Probably 3 to 5 bedroom, 3 to 4 bedroom.
Could be. Yeah.
So a family of 4, 2 adults, and maybe 2 teenage children, it would not be able to work in these.
There would be a restriction, right? It's, you're restricted, you have 3 parking spaces.
Okay.
And that's code. I mean, in a lot of instances, there would only be 2 parking spaces required.
I understand meeting minimum code, it's just again, that's the quality of life. Similar thing is at Esplanade, which is right above the house. You see a lot of issues with parking there. They tend to park also. They'll park at the Monument Park. They'll park in my neighborhood. They'll park across the street at the Harvest Apartments. Because there was not a thought out process of people live there, people need to park there, people have bigger families, they need allotted code free. So I get it. I just want that to be thought about.
Thank you for your comments.
You know, I guess my comment would be, if you have, too much parking, then you have everybody driving and then the quality of life living in Reno goes down too. So I think we need to try to maximize, you know, like, to me, it sounds like this would be a great area for transit-oriented development because you're already building the houses and, you know, if you have everybody in a car, it's gonna ruin Reno. So we need to start thinking about how to incorporate mass transit. And I don't know if RTC serves this area or and how that works, but to me, it seems like this would be a great opportunity for that. I am kind of concerned about, you know, if there was a Lahaina type event in this neighborhood, you know, people would not be able to get out. Sounds like just the way it is now, so.
So we, yeah, I mean, where I think a statement was made that, you know, we have a PUD and that dictates.
Right.
It does not trump fire code, right? Fire
No,
code is.
I guess I'm not backing on you. It seems like it's a city of Reno issue that should be fixed, that, you know, people need to get out of this development. There's already problems getting out now and you're gonna add 59 more homes.
Yeah, so we have to meet international fire code. International fire code is updated every few years and takes into account things like, you know, those massive events and things like that. So that's why there are requirements for multiple points of access and construction materials in the homes, all sorts of things like that go into making it a more fire resilient community.
The fire sprinkler.
They would not have to be.
Well, thank you everyone for your comments.
Now, make sure you can either do the comments tonight, you can do them online, because don't you send them electronic comment card?
Yeah, so if you look at today's agenda, and there's copies of the agenda up at the front table. Under item C, where it says development projects, there's a link in there. And that's the link to the project review form, which goes straight to the planning commission. And in addition to that link, anyone who's filled out one of these forms today, their comments will also be sent to the planning commission for review. And I know the planners watch these meetings carefully to look at the comments that are received from community members. So I would encourage all of you to fill those out. And before we move on, Madam Chair, I just want to see if anyone participating on Zoom would like to give public comment. If you'd like to give public comment virtually, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window.
But if we put in that form, we can still go online and put in comments.
Yes, that's correct.
And you can still write a letter. I mean, you don't have to use a form. You could just write a letter, email it. You can copy it to anyone, but just make sure you also copy it to publiccomment@reno.gov. Okay?
While the people on Zoom are raising their hand, we've received another request for in-person public comment from Elaine and Jim Colgan. Go ahead, you'll have 3 minutes. Please start by stating your name.
I have a little problem with the.
Could you say your name first?
Jim Colgan is my name. And grew up in Reno, Westfield Village. And I have a little problem with the way they allowed so many homes built at Ranchera. We live there. And I remember growing up in Westfield Village where there were 180 homes and nobody had 2 cars. Everybody had 1 car. And there were 3 ways to get in, 3 ways to get out. Now we're at Ranchera. There's 1 in, 1 out. I see a possibility to get out on Del Monte, actually. But nobody's talked about that, I don't think. But I really feel like it's not only uncomfortable living in a place like that, but it's dangerous. I'm a doctor and I've been called to help people when they're ill, when they're having a heart attack. And there's nothing worse than not being able to get into the community. And so I really think that folks have to look at this and say, how could they have approved so many homes in a place like that? Now, when we bought, we've been there for 3 years. So, you know, when we bought there, it was maybe 100 homes, I don't know, 150. But when you go to the number that they're talking about, I'm saying, I don't know if I could get in there or get out of there if there was a problem. And so I have to leave that up to you folks to decide. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Madam Chair, we do have one person who'd like to give public comment by Zoom.
Okay.
Pam Thistle. Pam, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please start by stating your name. You'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Pam Thistle. I'm just inquiring if there's a way to get that planning commission for input form. If we're not there at the meeting.
Yes, if you go to reno.gov/meetings, you'll be able to see the agenda for today's meeting and the links on the agenda. And you can also just Google Reno Planning Commission project review form, and it'll show up on there too.
Thank you very much. That was my question.
Of course, thank you, Pam. Okay, Madam Chair, I don't see anyone else who'd like to give public comment on this item.
Thank you, Tyler. Thank you for everybody that came out today on this item, and thank you, Andy, for your presentation and for answering all the questions today. We appreciate that. So with that, again, I think our residents and our neighborhood folks coming out, we appreciate your support and all your comments. With that, we're going to move on to our next development project. This is going to be Development Project C2 Canyons. This is going to be a PUD amendment. A request has been made for an amendment to the Canyons Planned Unit Development Handbook to increase the number of residential units from 81 to 110. B, reduce the number of land use categories and villages. C, modify the allowed use within each land category. And D, make changes to various environmental standards, including grading, federal forest management, and open space requirements. And E, make changes to other development standards, including site building and roadway design, among other modifications. The 161.23 acre site is located east of the eastern terminus of Mine Shaft Drive. The site is within the Canyons zoning district and has a master plan unit land use designation of single family neighborhood and parks, greenways, and open space.
Oh, okay. All right.
Hello, Brett.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brooke Oswald. I'm with the ORET Planning Group. For those that are new, I'm working in private consulting. For those who knew me in the past, I used to work for the city for several years. So I was a planner, like Jeff in the back there. So familiar with the city of Reno in this format. Additionally, I want to introduce the rest of the team. I get just my background really quick. I worked for the city, and prior to that, I worked for a large civil engineering firm where I worked as a landscape architect and a planner. My background is environmental planning, landscape architect, and I've also have done schooling in real estate development. So sort of the whole spectrum. So you'll see a little of that reflected in the case we have today. On the engineering team, I have John Munson with Venture Engineering. John's been working in the city of Reno probably 25 years. Has worked on a lot of projects around town, especially those on the hillside development. It's been great to work with his team, very talented, and we've crafting a solution of this very unique site. And then finally, we have Tom Dolan. Tom's come in and has helped to restructure some of the land holdings and is helping out kind of lead and hold this team as we move forward. So with that, the Canyons, it is a planned unit development amendment. That is basically a zoning. So what you just saw is a tentative map. This is a level higher. So what you would anticipate with approval of this, you would see a tentative map coming forward of the project. So the detail is not going to be as detailed as the previous, but we are addressing those things as services, utilities, and some of those other very important issues. Next slide, please. Okay, it didn't come in as an animation, so I'll explain where we're going here. So for our project location, look where we're going. This is Damani Ranch High School.
I think there's those two switches on the other side. Those ones, try turning those on. Turning.
Okay, that's better. All right, so we have Damani Ranch High School. And here, this little blue thing is the D on the hill, which help everyone orient. The yellow right above that is a project called DP2. That's 18 townhomes that is approved, has a tentative map of the project. The large yellow circle that you're seeing is a project that's currently in process. That is the Valley View project. That is an annexation, a master plan, and a zoning map amendment. They have a PUD handbook on that.
As you look, the white line is the city of Reno outline there. So that's why they are requiring that annexation to come in the city. We look at our project site, it's 160 acres outlined there in the black triangle. The entirety is in the city of Reno. Really quickly looking at access, this is Mine Shaft Drive and Claim Jumper Way. So we have two access points coming into the site. And then one thing, when we have this larger map out here, I've been involved with the free range roaming horses out on the Virginia range for a number of years now. I worked with the advocates, also working intimately with the Nevada Department of Agriculture. These horses are being fairly or stray livestock, and they are under the management of the NDA. So with this, we worked to secure a feeding site through the NDA and have been working with the advocate, two of the advocate groups that do diversionary feeding and do some of the birth control on that. So this is our initial site now. I have some photos later. We'll see of the horses out there. Those are pulling the horses, keeping them away from the neighborhoods. So we worked on behalf of the Dolan family to secure this site, use user agreements to get that through and moving forward. What we have is a long-range plan to continue to move the horses. So we have done roadway improvements and it is now accessible up into this second thing. And so next year, we'll anticipate they'll start feeding there in the fall and we'll be moving those horses. As development continues, we'll be moving further up the hillside, some additional property. The Dolans have moved forward. They've reseeded approximately several hundred acres up there at a cost of probably close to $70,000. That was done with a helicopter a couple of years ago. From what I've heard, it's coming in really good. And so there's going to be that forage and feed up above. Overlooking at our master plan, we have we're looking at our single family neighborhood, which is the yellow. As you notice, there's an exact line here and there, or a line. And then we have the PGOS, that's our parks, greenways, and open space. The SF is very similar to the Palisades, or is similar to the Palisades development below. This is a really unique line here, and this was established through our regional system that we have a regional tier designation. That's tier 2 and tier 3. And this land was determined to be suitable for development. And so they were able, we did a tier change and that moved to tier 2, while this larger portion in green is staying tier 3. So you won't see any future development. As we see the development plan, you'll see that that's very specific on that. And then as we look at our zoning, that pink is representative of that planned unit development, which there is a specific handbook that has standards requirements that have to be, and that's really unique to the situation and the project as a whole. Next slide, please. So as we look through this, you can see this is down through the Palisades. Looking up off to the far right of this, you can see the large rock formation in the canyon that is just on that south side of the project site. This is looking actually down on the project site from a little bit higher and looking down the free roaming horses out there down on that site. This project where they are now will become, you can see in our future slide of how we're going to kind of envision this site in the future. And down on the bottom, we have a panel which sort of distorts the site, but gives that overall view of our beautiful valley and the Sierra Nevadas. Next slide, please. So to go over the project history really quick, back in April of 2021, the original Canyons PUD was approved. In 2022, we had an amendment that was for 73 homes at that time. In 2022, we had a Canyons Edge amendment that added an additional 8 homes. Now that Canyons Edge is that small little sliver that we determined was development. That's a little over 17 to 20 acres, somewhere in there. And so we're seeing 8 homes on that acreage. And this is where we're going to kind of get into this density discussion. Our current request, and that's really this puzzle piece that we're here now to kind of bring those two together. And we've re-looked at the site in a lot of ways to bring forward a better project. We submitted back in March, currently under review. Carter Williams is the planner on this. We met with him last Thursday, went through his initial comments. I also met with Tracy Wilson, who's a representative of horse advocates, and have had conversations with her, working through her comments and as we go forward. Additionally, there's some other stakeholders I'll mention as we go through this. Anticipating to be at the Planning Commission May 15th. This is a zoning map amendment, so we'll have to be heard by city council. We usually see city councils about a month to a month and a half after that date. We don't schedule until we have that planning commission recommendation. So why this amendment? First thing is really the format and the standard improvements that we did here. So we have a number of handbooks. We have kind of this amendment that's happened. In working as city staff, I realize they're hard to interpret and there's a lot of places where it goes. What we did with this is it mimics Title 18. Title 18 is City of Reno's land development code. That's how development happens. And so this specifically mimics the section and chapters. So if it's not addressed here, it goes back to city. But if it is addressed in the handbook, it's very easy to determine what trumps what. As I mentioned, Tom Dolan has come onto this, and we've got a new owner organization that we're moving through, and so that's a little bit of why we're spurring this amendment. Also that current market, and that's coming from 2021. It is a very different real estate market now than it was 3 years ago, and as you all know, a lot has happened in that. Inflation and we're, rising interest rates, and the home market has changed. Additionally, we did have a fiscal analysis of this, and we are adding those additional units, and it comes as more of a positive for the city with reduced infrastructure costs and those additional homes. We're looking at a holistic approach, and I'll go through that. We go through our development. We really looked at this site as a whole and how we can bring it together to bring the best project forward on this site. And that comes with a lot of sustainability that's incorporated into the plan we've done. And we also added a sustainability section, which is in our current code, but hasn't been filled out. We set one for this that's specific to this development that adds different requirements of open space and product selection and a number of things through that method. Our access and safety, we've got a new loop road design, and we believe that access is going to help disperse traffic. We have had a traffic study done on that, and I'll go into that a little bit more. And then also that safety from a fire aspect of those 2 points of contact. The looping road provides an overall fire. This is adjacent to what's called WUI, or our wildland urban interface. And so there are some additional fire standards and other things that have to happen that are incorporated in the site. And then finally, as I'll show you, we have improved open space. We've really prioritized specific areas that are of importance of open space. And not only have we preserved those, we're proposing to enhance those. And then the recreation component of this, I think we looked at it not only at our site, but as a local level, but as a regional level. And I'll go into that a little bit more. Next slide, please. Our development concept. Run through this really quick so everyone can get a orientation. Once again, Mineshaft Road, Claim Jumper Way. So our 2 points of access here. Once again, that simplicity of standards. This previously had for 80 homes, roughly 5 villages that have 5 different standards. And we've really brought it into one main village that has a few standards as we move up the hill, but largely one standard for the 110 proposed homes. As I mentioned before, that connectivity and safety, as you can see, there's a large looping road that now comes all the way in and accesses. Before, we had 2 roadways that came up this way and then ended in a cul-de-sac up here. And so with that, we've created a full loop road that provides that additional access. And as you'll see through the recreation and probably some other opportunities. We are off of this. We do provide the opportunity to connect to potential future development through this upper portion there. That roadway is not necessarily part of that project, but we have looked at potentially to make sure that we're anticipating potential future development. The roadway that we're seeing up here provides additional access as required up above, but mainly what we're looking at, will be the Tumwa water tanks. And so that road will be in design to make sure we're meeting their standards and meet the standards of Tumwa for that utility there. And as we're looking at utilities, there's one other major utility line. That's a major overhead power line. We've moved all our development and everything outside of the easements of that. And then one of the big features that's prominent on this site is this drainage way. And we have taken incredible effort. John's team has done a fantastic job to really minimize that. Prior to this, we had two roadways that kind of came up and really disturbed a large section of that. What we've done is in this orange, we have one 90-degree, it's in a very narrow area as quickly as we can to get across that. And that this drainage way becomes a major feature and focal point of that community. Let me just make sure we're looking, so it's slightly yellow, it's green. This would be our open space. And then we're seeing these yellow being our residential development, allowing for both attached and detached product. Let's see if grading, so looking at that density open space, so we're up to 110 units. Well, how did we look to improve, get more units out of this from that original 81 that's approved? Like I said, originally this has come in, the Canyon's Edge came in as 8 10-acre lots. And we're really looking at alternatives really to cluster that housing down around that existing roadway and infrastructure and really cluster that much tighter. So that density was taken, the way I did that was I took our hillside development standards and determined the appropriate density. And then there's the ability to allow a flexibility through our standards in that. So that's how I came to the number of 110. What I did then is did a number of research at a number of communities, how they're approaching hillside development. And I found one that was that I thought was really appropriate and simplified it so that it's very clear and easy for the public to understand, because the hillside is very confusing as you start to roll through that. And what I did is I took the different grades that we have on there, going from 0 to over 30%. And I assigned values that would be allowed. So if we had, and I started at SF3, which allows 3 units per acre, which is the same that's allowed next door. And then as we go up in grade, I went down to half-acre lots. Then it goes to 1.5 acre lots. It goes to 2.5 acre lots allowed for the zoning going up. And finally, in that really steep stuff, it's 1 unit per 40 acres. And so in that, using that same method, I was able to come up with 110. The other thing is we have limited land that we can develop, and the land we have in Reno has become very difficult. And so we need to use it really efficiently. And what we did is looking at this, the previous design had almost 200,000 yards of off-haul. So there's an environmental issue that comes with that. There's also the impact that it has on those surrounding neighborhoods as those trucks are going through. Working with our design team, we have balanced this site, which means everything that's on the site stays on the site and is regraded through that site. That reduces that off-haul, exhaust, emissions, truck traffic through neighborhood, which there's a huge sustainability portion to that. As I mentioned, the utilities and services, we are seeing the tanks up here. This will supply water to potential future development, but it also creates that redundancy loop with those existing tanks that will give more security to the existing and surrounding neighborhoods. With this too, this was previously were some custom lots that were in here. They would have all been required to have separate pumps and pump back out. Now we're able to get that all on one utility line and bring that all the way down. And then, so we will have utilities rolling through here, which, as you'll see in our next slide, has a lot of advantages as to what we're proposing in that area. And then at the bottom there, once again, that protection of the drainage way and further enhanced. Next slide, please. So this is what I'm really excited. It has been a lot of fun once we sort of had our main plan together. Is our parks, recreation, and trailhead. So I'll start with our big focal points, which are large, which I consider a neighborhood park up here. I'd anticipate, this is the photo where you saw all the horses. That is the same location. I'd anticipate that would be a passive park, so we'd see public art. We're going to see historic interpretation signs, the ability to educate, also staging area for recreation and other opportunities there. We're proposing another small little pocket park down on the drainage there to celebrate that drainage. I would anticipate some shade structures, potential benches, other interpretive signage in that area. Our main start point here is our trailhead. We'll be providing parking. Obviously, all the trails and parks will be open to the public. That would be a parking area and staging area. As I mentioned before, we have utilities running down over to that line, which is great for this area because now we have water and we have sewers, so potential restrooms, water, other facilities like that. With that, I'd see a staging area for bikes, those other providing, you know, six to 10 parking spaces along there. And then moving on to, additionally in the park, you know, that multi-use trail. Going through our trail system really quick, we've got a trail that's moving down here. This connects to the existing Palisades and our existing communities there. It's through Arms, we come down, we have a central hub here that goes up and connects to the upper properties. And then we come down using the same crossing to minimize those impacts across here along the drainage way and perpetuating that trail onto the next properties so that that can be done. The stop trail here is really unique. I've over the last month to 2 months have been working with the regional group. I know Councilmember Dorr has donated money to that larger plan. And like I said, trails are really important to me. So I've been working with them intimately to help look at that larger trail network. So this will become one of the trailheads and main points here, with this going up and connecting to a trail that is anticipated to move up and then move a higher trail along. And so what we're going to see is a series of circles. So you can do circle laps. It provides a lot of different options. So this section will be that lower portion of that circle. And then one of the other great things we're doing on the site, as you notice, there's a number of open space. That open space requirement will be for 1 acre of development, we'll have to have 2 acres of open space. And that's a minimum. I anticipate that we will exceed that as we see our development plan come in. But all these areas that you're seeing with trees and grasses and those areas are areas that we're looking to do restoration. So those hillsides have been damaged by fire, historically the mining operations and removal of trees. We see overgrazing, we see misuse of that land. And I think there's really an opportunity to start to restore a lot of that. And that goes through many things of celebrating our natural flora and fauna, but also that ecology, because they work in systems. And so what we'd be doing is planting native trees, I've worked with the urban forester. I've also been in contact with the urban horticulturist and working on seed lists that we see through that tentative map. Through this area, we'd be reseeding a lot of this hillside with native seeds. In initial conversations, milkweed and some of those are really important plants for insects. Also, the monarch butterflies that actually migrate through this area would have that opportunity to improve that habitat for them. We're using these trees as some screening between those houses and the roadways. And then we have additional opportunities up above to do some reseeding with native and maybe some more seedling plantings or different, take a little bit different approach to start to try to restore some other vegetation up that hillside. Next slides, please. Oh, wait, can you go back really quick? Because there's one other unique thing that we have added in this slide. We did up in our park and trailhead area, we do allow for some temporary uses. We're allowing for temporary bike rentals. I think we can see the city's adaptive uses being up there or events being held in that can tie into that larger regional trail. And then we do allow for a temporary stable, which they could bring in up to 6 horses, be able to offer horseback riding and stuff through the summertime through there. Next slide. Oh, and then I guess, sorry, one more. And down once again along that, I think there's a lot of opportunities along that drainage way to actually start to create some of those. We don't necessarily have a riparian system, but I think there are a number of plants that are suitable for that area to help keep erosion down, to provide food and forage and some other things up that drainage way. Next slide. So I'll just give you a quick summary. Once again, we simplified that handbook so it's easy to use, easy to understand, and follows Title 18. It mimics Title 18. The efficient and appropriate use of land. So like I said, we're balancing the site. We're using that land efficiently. We've created that road network. And that's really, we need to start to look at that because we need to protect our land. We also need to provide for housing. And so it's really important to use our professionals to try to find where that balance is stakeholder engagement. As I mentioned, I've worked with the regional trails, I've worked with the horse advocates, worked with city staff to help get the best project and the most information that I can get from all of those resources. Sustainability, the site itself, as we've designed it, has a sustainable component, and then we have additional through construction and some other standards through that. That protection and enhancement of those natural resources. It's a beautiful area, but it has been overloved. And I think there's an opportunity to really bring back a lot of that natural environment there while providing those homes and those recreational opportunities. And that's last is that recreational component of bringing in those parks, trailheads, that connectivity to the overall trail system and being able to have that open to the public and used by the public. Next slide. So with that, once again, Venture Area Engineering, I'm a rep planning group and, available to answer questions.
Are there any questions from the board?
Yes.
Audrey? I think it's just that, try flipping it one more time. Oh, okay.
That was
I don't know.
late, wasn't it?
Audrey Keller, sir, could we go back to the slide that showed the yellow swath and the curve, yeah, this one? So your first slide showed where the horses were going to be, they're currently, and where you said you were going to move them to? And are you supplying water?
No, we're only supplying land, so any water, food has to be approved by the NDA, and so those are contracts and management contracts to go through that. So we are not allowed through the NDA for the provision of water or anything like that. And so, what we are working with them is to provide these diversionary feeding areas and birds where they're able to dart also. And so we've been working with the NDA to have a long-range plan. The NDA's plan is Nevada Department of Agriculture is to move those horses to the east.
On that, Brooke, if I may,
Yeah, please.
my understanding is when I met with the NDA, which is the Nevada Department of Agriculture for everybody, they are focused on potable water that is allocated by state engineer, but what's happening in other developments is use of reclaimed water. I don't know if you have a reclaimed water line coming in here at all.
No, we don't. The reclaim is down below and there aren't because we don't have the tank higher, so you don't have the water pressure actually to get it up. So it'd either be some sort of pump system or
But
something.
would it be coming along that power line road? I mean, that's a very like,
So the potable line is actually down, believe there is a potable line, but it's down sort of at the eastern portion or western portion of Palisades.
right, but I was talking about the non-potable line, the reclaimed water.
Yeah, so there is no reclaim. It will be potable water. So we'll have potable water obviously supplied by these tanks. We're anticipate a booster tank or a booster pump down in this area to fill that tank. And then that tank will loop to the Palisades tank and continue to
Well, I think it's something we have to address. I know it's coming up on Bella Vista. That, the council turned it down a couple of years ago because they wanted to see water there. And it's coming back in front of the council and it's gonna continue to be an issue.
And I understand, and there are a lot of challenges coming down through the state, and we worked on this together, and we know those challenges.
Yeah.
But I also know that, those resources need to be there. Now, maybe there's some other opportunities up above to do that.
Good.
Yeah.
So when you say that you've worked with Tracy, I mean, have they given specific suggestions like a fencing or?
Yeah, she has, and she supplied those comments last week, and so I want to gather all the comments before I go through, so we're looking at that. Obviously, fencing will be required, that's part of it, it was part before.
Yeah.
We haven't really changed that as much. What we really want to do is, we want to know where the develop is, and so that fence coming in with the tentative map is that time we bring in the details of the fence, where the gates are, how that works, and how that whole process works. Obviously, as we worked on this, the HOA would be, or the developer would be responsible for installing it. And then through the life of that, the HOA is going to be responsible for any maintenance.
One more horse question and then we'll move on. Where you have this lighter yellow and darker yellow, so I assume that's about the area where the cliffs, no, up to the right, to the east. Yeah, you have lighter and darker yellow. So that's about the area where the cliffs start, the terrain goes more steep. And so my question is, one of the extreme challenges of the last plan that I hope you will address here is that they had the housing, these 5-acre pads right up to the edge of the very steep, and they had negotiated like a 10-foot wide trail for these horses to go through. Are you gonna be able to give a little bit more breathing room with this new, what did you call it? Clustering?
We'd hope to cluster a little bit
Right.
more, so smaller lots and bring them down the
Right.
roadway. You know, I think there are opportunities. Obviously, that's working
what-
through that tentative map to figure out how
Occurred to me.
that works. Yeah.
But you have an existing tentative map, so that would be no longer,
Well, we'd either look that we would propose to come in with a new one and sunset that, you know, based on approval sunset, or we could come in and amend that tentative map also.
Okay.
So there's a couple
All
ways
right.
that we could approach that.
one last question for me, on a previous map on your presentation, you showed a potential connection, maybe you could go back a few slides. This right here. So this was a huge point of contention at council,
Mhm.
that they used to have a cul-de-sac sort of with 5 homes right there. Myself and Councilmember Reese were out there. We asked the previous developer or plan to remove those houses because that's a very sensitive area. I mean, it would be ideal for you to continue this trail up this canyon and not put a connection right there. It's like the most sensitive little place of this whole 160 acres? So I would like to ask you when you're doing the zoning to think about that. Okay, but
As you can tell, we actually pulled.
I saw that. I couldn't tell.
We pulled our development back.
I couldn't tell.
Yeah.
And it looked good that you moved the bridge down. I mean, the bridge was very contentious before.
If you remember, that used to actually.
Exactly.
It took out, I bet we've reduced the impact of that by a third to 2/3.
Right, well, I think it's an improvement because exactly your point, it was slicing across lengthwise, basically across the canyon, meaning the bridge itself very long. We've seen video of water coming down through there at pretty high rates. It's a flood induced ephemeral stream.
Yep.
And we have video of like racing water, and the last thing we want to do is imperil these residents. So I think this is an improved plan right here.
Certainly, and then I think, you know, those additional improvements that we have some opportunity to actually improve that drainage way in some ways, right?
I don't know.
Either through rock on site,
I
but
see.
the vegetation also, I think, is a huge part of being able to get vegetation along those bank sites and some of that.
One more thing is that being an ephemeral stream, I would encourage you to look at the report from Natural Heritage Program from the state.
Yes.
Because what they did was identify, you pointed out, and I brought this up years ago, which was that this was considered monarch butterfly habitat, and other native plants that were critical to that kind of assemblage, if you will. And I didn't see recognition of that in the last plan.
Yeah.
But it sounds like you are.
As I said, I have done a lot of restoration work and land restoration, and that's important to me. And I think there's a great opportunity here to kind of set a precedence of
Yeah.
how maybe we should be approaching some of these developments.
Because that's why the state is there identifying these things, and not for us to ignore them, but for us to take them into consideration in the plan.
Yeah, and that's what we look through our seed mix, kind of hopefully replicating to be able to provide some of those links to some of those other species.
I have a question, Brooke, with some of the houses that are gonna be built on that uphill slope side, I mean, what are they taking measures to do slope stabilization? Cause that's a pretty steep cut. Those are some serious cuts that you guys are
Sure,
be
you
doing.
know, as I said, we're balancing that site. Some of those guys, so the city of Reno has a number of standards that are coming back to their Public Works Design Manual. And they set a lot of those standards on erosion control, gradings and stuff like that. We also anticipate there's a number of rock, and we'd like to incorporate that rock and build some small rock walls. That's indicative of what you see down below. You see a number of kind of rock walls that move up, smaller rock walls that move up through Palisade. We'd anticipate some of the retention being done with that. And then third, you know, as hopefully we start to get some of these native species above it, and if we can get the plants to come in and help to bind, and we're creating that sense, that's really gonna be one of the best mechanisms for erosion control.
On that note, as a geologist, which I rarely play the geologist card, but in this case, there's at least three issues. One was that the soil study that was done on site showed shrink swell soils. And so it really wasn't addressed, but in the report, it really identified that this is something that has to be addressed. Number two is that where the road originally went, the one to the east, it followed directly on line of the earthquake fault. That is right there. It's a basin and range fault.
Yeah, there's a quaternary fault that lies right down here.
Right, but I'm talking about the one on the east.
The east side, okay.
Yeah, so where the road goes
Uh-huh.
and generally what the seismology department at UNR recommends is to be at least 50 feet away from earthquake fault. They admit themselves that 50 feet is not gonna do a lot. It should be like 100 feet or some bigger distance that, because if you have a earthquake, which you've had a whole swarm down here in South Reno, something, hundreds of earthquakes in the last, 6 months, I guess. Some of which were right on the edge of this property, some extending south towards Geiger Grade. I really think you have to look at earthquake stability of these homes. And then lastly, we mentioned the soil, we mentioned the earthquake. The previous plan involved a lot of blasting to cut into the hillside to your point, Madam Chair, about, in order to put a house up against a cliff, you were gonna have to blast and level and do all of this. And in the current report, there's a requirement that you have an evaluation by US Fish and Wildlife Service, because you can only, I think you recall this one, you can only blast you can't blast within a mile of an active eagle's nest.
Correct.
And at the time that you came in a couple years ago, or they came in, there was an active eagle's nest, and so it was to be evaluated at the time, and I just wanted to make sure those.
And that's also through the handbook lays out that we'll work with the NDOW, determine the appropriate sort of approach to do it. So if that's a wildlife management report, if that, we will work with them to do that. That is obviously something we're concerned about. We actually talked about, Tom and I were talking about that just a little bit earlier. And so, that's obviously something that could work through that. I think blasting, we're anticipating it'd probably be minimal. We don't know if we're actually gonna do it. We may be able to do.
Well, at the time, I pointed out to him having some experience with blasting. It's very expensive to think about doing it for a house. I mean, it's one thing when you must do it for a road or something, but.
And this time, so we have done, there's been a series of test pits, so we have even further soil knowledge than we did last time when we came in. Additionally, kind of working with local graders and something like that, getting an idea of what it would take to move some of that earth. They haven't said they felt they would need to blast or there was any requirement of that at this.
That's very good to hear. And then lastly, where you have this little loop that's up on that hill there. The very first iteration of this project had incredibly steep scree slopes. I don't know what you call them, what your official term is, but they had, and you see these in Somerset or some other places where they flatten off the top of a knoll and then there's these very long. And I remember that the staff originally recommended denial of this project because of those very steep, long talus slopes. And then when this iteration came in, they cut all that out. It'll be interesting to see, what you're recommending at this point. So then one last thing, and then you can answer all this. This area, you've walked there with me, has an incredible amount of rubble. And the rubble is coming from the upper rocks that are up on the cliffs. And they're coming down in the size of cars, this, size of this thing, or size of half a table, big pieces, big chunks. And one of the concerns last time was that rubble is going to continue what's there will keep coming down. And the concern is just that it would take out a house, a car, injure the road, and that there was going to have to be constant clearing of the road, like Geiger Grade. So they're always clearing off Geiger Grade of rubble. And what I was concerned at the time was putting that on the city of Reno. So you're saying, I think is gonna be a private street, I'm not sure.
I would, we haven't made that decision, obviously, the tentative map, but I would anticipate that we would look, because it is a loop road and the way that it provides a provision for fire service, that we have the public moving in to go to the trails, that we'd anticipate it being.
So last time what they were talking about was doing some kind of slope stability to prevent those rocks from coming down.
And I think we'd see something similar in this case.
I just wanted to throw out the major things that I recall from 4 years ago. Okay.
Donna.
Hi, Donna Keats. But it looks like a pretty cool plan. It's a much oversimplified, easier to understand, and easier to, I don't know, done a lot. I think done a really good
I
job
worked
here.
hard to keep it.
No, I mean,
Even,
it's.
and then build up from where we.
No, I mean,
Yeah.
it looks really good from what I remember, but my question is more basic than that. I have this vague memory of like this stuff coming here a lot and the water tanks a lot. And
Yeah.
so what are we really talking about? There was the trail, there were 18 homes, they were all stuffed on one road.
We came in
and
through
then
this.
The Tumwa access to their tanks. And is this whole property the same as that Dolan property that was?
So, yeah, and so I moved those, a lot of those, processed a lot of those, and there were, so originally, planner Sienna Reed. Now, the
Right.
city of Sparks came in on this, I
Right.
got it from there.
There was a steep
There
road
was,
back
this hadn't been
there.
annexed at this point, so we had an annexation come in at that point for these upper acres, because that was built by the, this roadway alignment that needed to use, and also the water tank.
So what are the
Then-
different pieces? That southwest piece was something else, right?
This was the original canyons. This came in, these two came in as the canyon's edge.
Okay, Kenny.
For the
that was
development, but also came in for an annexation for the utility.
Okay, and they were the ones with like the 18.
They have
Some
eight,
small
currently
number.
they were proposing
Up there with
8
water
homes there
tanks.
with big 10-acre lots, and we're rethinking of that, and that, I think hopefully what we would see is that upper coming out of private hands and being going more into an HOA. So what you're seeing a lot of here are the beautiful rock formations and canyons that we see up above. So we're hoping that comes more into a public open space. We can't have open space in private hands, but obviously I think it probably makes sense to move that way. And so we're exploring that
So
option.
how many different of these canyon things are all now on this one parcel?
So
one
the
that-
Canyon PUD is now, this is it. And
Right.
now that we've
Like
done all
the
these.
pieces that went into it, when they got incorporated into the, because just recently there was a piece that got.
So the one to the south, yeah,
Oh, VP2, yeah. So that's owned by the same owners, but a different project, not associated. They have a standard zoning, an SF8 zoning. So
That's
they
something
just came in and were.
no, but there's another one straight to the south, which is the Macaulay and,
Yep, Chico, Macaulay and Chris Torme.
yeah,
They have another 80 acres. They're currently in process now. That's, once again, that was the annexation master plan. That is not these owners. Those are separate owned.
but they did propose connecting and making the Canyon PUD to incorporate their 80 acres.
They did look at that, try to explore that, I believe, at one time and decided to do their own PUD, I think.
But recently something got added to the canyons, just what we're planning.
Not
to do.
since 2022. There has
Okay.
been nothing.
This is what came, Macaulay, Torme.
Yeah, it would have been there's 40 acres, there's 80 acres that sit to the south of this.
One more thing, Brooke, and I'm sorry to be talking so much. I know a lot of our members are new. And I've had a very long history on this project, but one of the things that was discussed, oh my goodness. Senior moment here.
Would really help, yeah, thank you.
Okay, there you go.
So this property and this property are in right now, but are not associated with this project. They're a separate project.
I'm gonna hold on that.
Okay, so then the water tank thing. That had different roads the last time I think I saw it.
Yeah, we've been, so Tumwa specifications have changed. Originally, we had one tank. They have
Oh.
gone to this 2-tank
Right.
system now.
Okay, thank you.
Additionally, they, a lot of times you'll cut and then you back out fill. What Tumwa wants to see is all of those tanks back into a stable, so you're gonna see kind of more of a cut as that goes back in. Additionally, that roadway may change a little bit. We're working with Tumwa right now to make sure that we're getting the proper grade so they can get up and access and maintenance and all
There's
of that.
something about whether or not that road was gonna be locked or it was gonna be available to travel through for public access to the east.
So, to the east, so obviously, Tumwa will secure their property that would be dedicated to Tumwa once, that time and that service was there. They obviously try to limit, people around their tanks and try to limit that. We do have an access up there that we will need to maintain. I'm gonna tell you right now.
Of other properties.
I hiked that road the other day and it is incredibly steep.
I know.
It is still down. I mean, it's a Jeep road at this point, and we will maintain that. Obviously, we can't control access or provide public access past the property that we have, but obviously that could become accessible to the public up there.
And one caution, at our last council meeting, we had about 20 owners of houses at the Cliffs.
Mhm.
I don't know if you followed this one, but
I did. I saw that. I was there all 12 hours. Yeah.
okay. Well, one of the big issues was one, lack of completing the project, taking the bond away before all of the rock walls were built, all the vegetation was planted, wanting to convert vegetated areas to rock areas to reduce price, which I get. But the residents were very unhappy because that's not what they bought, right? It was like sort of, we said we'd do this, but now we're doing this. And then they're sort of walking away. And so there's a major enforcement case now with the city about enforcing what was proposed on the project. And it's a very, it's similar in some ways, you know, it's very high. It's a challenging site.
I worked bonds for and did release of bonds for quite some time. I didn't do the Cliffs
Yeah.
nor associated with that. And but I did notice that. Like I said, we're looking for that restoration, and we're looking at restoration a little bit different way, right? Of more of a native restoration. And where they got feared, obviously, we're gonna have a noxious weed plan. So that will go in and initially we'll eliminate any noxious weeds, and then we're gonna start to go in. But yeah, that is a concern. And obviously, you know, there's some concern about that bond not being, maybe being removed before it should have been before.
Too early.
Too early.
Yeah, before the landscape architect signed up.
Yep.
Okay.
And as you see development happen and others come in, obviously, the developer at that time or the home developer, that they felt that they had met that requirement, the city, signed off on that. Obviously, there's hopefully more awareness at this point.
Right.
We're looking.
There is.
And we're being more and hopefully we see a better restoration in this, in the intention that we're taking towards seeding and some of the other methods.
Who owns the land around this whole thing? Is it?
Sure, this is a group called Sunny Hills. They own several thousand acres to Sunny Hills. They own 7,000 acres, several thousand acres to the north of this project. Macaulay, or Chico Macaulay, Chris Dorme own these two properties here. This is still within the HOA of that. This is owned by the Virginia Forties, which is managed by a man named Jim Dolan, related to the Dolan family. These upper go into Virginia Forties, and there's, well, maybe 800 to 1,000 acres up above that's owned by the Virginia Forties. Then there's scatterings of little pieces along that. So this is, that area is up above there. Obviously, it is very steep. Access utilities are a long ways off for that to happen. It is in the city of Reno sphere of influence. That means that the city has jurisdictional control over that. So that's why you're having to see these annexations as this area is expanding before that steeper cliff.
So do you envision all this being developed in some?
The city of Reno, I don't know if it was before your serving, decided that as growth of the city, that the city would look to the sphere of influence that goes out to the Washoe County line. Now, Sunny Hills, looking at that, we're seeing that extension of South Meadows Parkway. There's some other things going on that, could facilitate that development in the future. I don't think it's anytime soon. I would not anticipate in my career is kind of what I'm thinking.
Any other questions?
Is there
Online?
anyone online who'd like to give public comment on this item? If you'd like to give public comment, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Madam Chair, we'll start with Mike McNeil.
Okay.
Mike, you should be able to unmute yourself. Please start by stating your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hello there. Good evening. Mike McNeil. Thank you for the time. I second the earlier comments by Judy Colbert on the developer continuing to push for more and more. I appreciate, the improvements of some of the things that they're doing on the original plan, and that's much appreciated. But in my opinion, the council has agreed to a proposal which is going to have major impacts on light pollution, more density, and an impact on wildlife. And in my opinion, council doesn't need to negotiate anymore. Now, if this remains a negotiation, then I propose the council to pull the concerned community members on negotiables that can be used to leverage the best interest of the existing homeowners and not the interest of the developer. I just ask council to recognize their jurisdiction authority and represent their constituents. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Mike. Up next, we have Anthony Amoruso. Anthony, you should be able to unmute. Please start by stating your name for the record and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Anthony Amoruso. I'm a resident on Mineshaft. I'm actually right just directly lower to the west here of this property. My big thing here that I see is that we have the ability for aggregate mining. I know that it has a 1-year limitation on it with up to 2 sequential years of mining, so 3 in total that would be allowed. My big question is that, you know, as the economy has changed, and we kind of have already identified multiple times now that the economy has changed over the past few years, and with rising costs of everything, if we get into this project and this hillside becomes, you know, too expensive to develop and we start to mine, what would be left with unstable hillsides, you know, with your ecological damages, you know, watershed issues, other things like that, we'll be left with as residents of this area now, having to have something to our east and worry of, you know, future floods or future rock slides. It was also talked about the earthquake activity that we've currently had. And as we get in here, and if this, you know, land becomes too unstable that we can't inhabit, how are we going to, you know, either, are we going to fall back on, do we need to develop this land and re-inhabitate it, or is it going to be left as is?
Sure, I can go ahead and answer that. So that aggregate mining is happening, as I mentioned, that we balance the site. So that wouldn't be taking aggregate off the site. What that allows is, there's a long time period here. We have a lot of dirt to move, you have infrastructure going in, and a number of things. And so what we're looking to do is go up there and be able to start to grade and sort. None of that'll all happen 700 feet away, 750 feet away, I believe. That also requires that the city administrator look at that, and we develop a plan of how we're going to propose that to the neighbors, how that will be done. So anything like that will have to, as we talked just a moment ago, will have to be bonded. We would determine the appropriate bond for that would happen through that. That's how we would ensure that restoration happened, or if they were to leave, or how that happened. The aggregate mining, like I said, is not to go off site. It's the ability for them to go up there. There's a long process. So there's a tentative map, and then a final map. That could be a couple years. And so this allows a developer to go up and begin sorting, sort of some rough grading, determining sort of the roadway and some of those things at an earlier stage. And so that's why it's limited to be temporary, is that it is really just set up to jumpstart the development so that on a long range that it works as they go up in grade. But that would all be protected through bonding and other measures. You also have the county that will probably have air quality and some other things that they'll be there. The SWIP, as far as stormwater, would all happen through our SWIP permits. And so that would all have to be permitted and would be inspected regularly to ensure the safety of those surrounding neighbors.
Thank you for your comments. Our final virtual public commenter is Judy Covert. Judy, you should be able to unmute yourself. Please start by stating your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Judy Covert on Gold Mine Drive. You know, here we are we've got the canyons, the Canyon Edge, DP2, McCauley, and like 4 or 5 other 40-acre parcels that, as we've always been told, the owners have the right to develop. But just taking the canyons, look at it. You're going out Claim Jumper and Mineshaft. And there's already 500 plus homes in Golden Hills and Palisades going out on Trail Rider or McCauley Ranch Boulevard onto Rio Wrangler. Now you're going to add 20% more homes up up on the canyons, plus all of these others. And at some point, we're going to be gridlocked. And it's the same problem with evacuations. If we have an earthquake, if we have a fire, if we had a school emergency, whatever. And this has to be planned for, and the infrastructure needs to be changed so that if you want all of these developments, then you have to change how we get out of here, which is a 2-lane road on Rio Wrangler. And, you know, I've talked to RTC. Yeah, we're in the planning stages. We don't have anything engineered yet. It may be 4 years. And that's what we've been told for 7 years. And this is a huge concern for the existing residents. Thank you.
And I certainly understand your concern, and that's obviously, we have conducted a traffic access study on this. So that extra density that we're proposing through that study, and they look at multiple ways out. They look at a number of things. They're looking at intersections and those levels of service, right? That study has basically says the additional density from the original traffic report does not have affect those levels of service at those key points.
Well, you know, the level of service right now is F. On Yeehaw and Macaulay
Okay.
Ranch, it's F. And there has been nothing done.
And I understand certainly the concerns down around the high school at different times of school time and stuff like that and being out there. I do think we'll potentially in the future, as I mentioned, that extension of South Meadows, I believe you're gonna see that extension of Rio Wrangler running over to South Meadows that would connect directly into Veterans. That will have a huge impact on those overall traffic patterns that we're gonna see out there. And then additionally, you know, as we continue to go look at this, we have been through the city code and in our peak hours of what we're determining to generate, we did turn that in. And obviously we are looking at those levels of service and we'll continue to work on those.
Well, do you live here? Do you live here and drive here?
I do not live in your neighborhood, ma'am, but I am out there quite often, at least a few
Well,
times.
I can tell you, it's a mess.
Thank you for your comments, Judy. You've exceeded your 3 minutes. I would encourage you to submit a development project review form. The link can be found on the agenda, or you can also Google development project review form, City of Reno, and you'll be able to find it. Madam Chair, we do have someone in the room who'd like to give public comment. Perfect. Please start by stating your name for the record and you'll have 3 minutes.
Catherine Tolles, I live on Mine Shaft, back up directly to where you're gonna be doing your construction. One of my questions about the road building, is it 2-lane, 1 way, 1 each way?
The roadway?
Yeah.
It'll be 1 each way.
Okay, are there sidewalks on each side? Is there bike lanes on each side of that as
So
well?
we have that overall trail plan and so one of the strategies, because of the steepness of the roads, we're doing sidewalk on one side. We have that internal trail system that will happen. Additionally, in areas, the road will narrow to reduce, so you're not having parking along some of those roadways, and then it will open up where we have those housing to provide that additional housing. So we've kind of approached it in multiple ways, but we have created a complete sort of connection through the community.
I guess my biggest concern is the part that's gonna be in front of the hill. The part that you can see, when you're looking at the development from the west.
Yes.
Looking east, there's that hill that has the peak and the horses are to the north of that. You're talking about that road coming in, is that gonna be in front of the power lines or?
It'll be
behind it?
behind the power lines.
Okay, so there's a lot gonna be blasting going in to be able to get a 2-lane road there.
There will be grading
Yeah.
through that area.
But it's also, I imagine it's gonna end up being a public road if you're gonna put a trailhead there with possible stables. So we're not talking just people who are living there. We're talking about a lot of the community coming. Now, there's a lot of people who come to that area now for ATVs, walking, hiking. It's a great area.
Yeah.
And I have no problem with that. I have no problem with development at all. I just think my concern is that road on the front side, because you're kind of diminishing. You can see that from Reno, anywhere in Reno, you can look, and you're not gonna have a road there. It's gonna have a lot more noise and traffic than anybody in my neighborhood ever anticipated. Because when the Canyons was first passed, that road was gonna be on the backside. It was not gonna be coming into the front side.
Right.
That is my concern. And I know you're talking about safety, but that had to have been addressed in the original plan. And I-
There were obviously some
Right, so-
concerns about the safety and how that looked, and yes.
And I understand that, and I understand the need for safety, and I understand the need to get there for fires and things. But I can't believe that there wasn't attention paid to that on the original plan, and why you now need to extend that road so significantly into the front. You know, with everybody to see what a nice, how well we
Change
cut the
them.
road into the side of the hill. And then what that means to noise. to
So
neighbors.
is it this one on the left?
So the one on the left, yes.
So it used to just go straight down and connect in with, the power line.
Yeah, that front side, what, that one on the left is now in front of the hill. That's gonna be seen and heard, and you're gonna have a lot of public people, you're gonna have a trailhead there, you're encouraging a lot more, which is great to have a trailhead, but you don't always have to have a formal road to get to trailheads.
So we are just to the east of the power line there. This is, the alignment's a little bit different, but there's currently a dirt road that runs.
Right,
through
I
there.
know, I walked it
That's
many times.
yeah.
I know that.
So this would be different. And then if you go to the open space one of the things, obviously you can't completely diminish a roadway, and I completely understand that. We are looking at trying to provide vegetation and some other opportunities to try to reduce any potential impacts. Additionally, you've got that large easement, between these properties. They're not like they're abutting right above them. There is a large piece of open space, and it is fairly steep.
Utility road, there's.
Yeah, the utility road, and there is a little bit of grade that goes down into that maintenance road and the swale that runs back behind the Palisades.
I'm fully aware of that. I'm on the LMA board for that organization. I'm here as an individual, not representing the board.
Certainly.
But, I just kind of feel like Mike spoke earlier online. There was an original plan, that did not have that road. That is my bigger concern, in all honesty.
Certainly.
I know traffic is a whole nother issue. I totally agree with Judy on that, because there's a school that's probably gonna be going in there too. And you, listen to the people from Ranchero. The planning was done. The traffic studies were done, but they're clearly inadequate. So when you tell me now that you've been doing those traffic studies, I can't believe that they're gonna continue to be adequate. Every time people say, well, we met the plan, we met the adequate.
I'd be happy to connect you with Brooke offline. You're actually 2 minutes over, so I want to make sure everyone who's here has the opportunity to speak.
Yeah, certainly, if you want
We
to.
only have the room.
Talk, and I can certainly,
About
yeah.
that. Could you consider another avenue, so to speak?
Yeah, and we can, obviously reach out to me.
And just sharing, we have the room, we have a hard stop at 9 in 10 minutes. We have it a half hour longer than we usually have it, which was 8:30, so we have to complete it. Let me just say this. I really appreciate everyone who's here on this project because, a lot of thought went into it before. Things are changing. It has to be reevaluated.
Certainly. That's why, why we're here, we certainly want to get that public input.
Thank you, everybody, for your comments. Thank you, everybody on Zoom for your comments. And thank you guys for coming out and staying so late with us this evening and for your thorough discussion and explanation. We really, really appreciate your coming and spending it.
Thank you all, and welcome to board members.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on. We're going to go to item number D, board commission committee members, reports and announcements. Any?
Are there any reports or announcements from any of the board members? None, we can move on, Madam Chair.
All right, on moving item to number E, future agenda items.
Are there any board members who would like to identify future agenda items? Audrey?
Yeah. I would like to add the city parks that are within Ward 2 as a future agenda item. And I bring it up because my local park is Wheatland Park, and it's falling apart where the kids play. And the landing pads, when they come off the slide, they're shredded. And I know that I'm guessing that the city has some sort of a parks schedule for refurbishment of every play part in the city. And that if you don't, you should.
But I would like to hear from city staff about what's scheduled to be renovated or replaced. You know, they have an equipment schedule. And so but for Ward 2, and I don't know how many parks are in Ward 2. I have no idea.
Overall in the city, there's 88 parks, so if we just say roughly 20% of them. But they're smaller and they're different because it's suburbs. And but it would be great because we've had complaints about the Monty Ranch Park. This park up at Wheatland, you showed me the pictures, looks pretty bad. And so we need to understand from parks, what is the replacement schedule and the plan? I think that's a great agenda item.
Thank you. Anybody else? Future agenda items? Okay, public comment. Last call for public comment.
We did have one person who was registered for public comment, Michelangelo Aranda, registered to give comment again, but I think he just left. Seeing no one in the room, is there anyone on Zoom who'd like to give closing public comment? If you'd like to give closing public comment, please use the raise hand button at the bottom of your Zoom window. Judy, did you have closing public comment, or was it just was your hand still up from your previous comments?
It was from the previous, but just thank you to everybody for listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy.
Thank you, Judy. Okay, Madam Chair, I don't see anyone else who'd like to give closing public comment.
And I'd just like to say to our new board members, welcome. You have you started off with a bang.
Right into the deep end.
Yeah, and this is kind of indicative of how our NAB meetings go. We have a lot of development projects. We have a lot of difficult projects and variances, special use permits, tentative maps that we see in Ward 2. So you guys did a great job. I applaud you all for your great questions and hanging in there. Sometimes it is a little bit difficult. I would like to say, for those of you that are new on this board, ask your questions. If you don't understand, stop the speaker, have them explain more thoroughly, because sometimes people like Andy and Brooke and John, they've been doing this for a really long time, so they just kind of like glaze over
Power through.
because they're so used to doing it. So please be sure to ask your questions if you don't understand, or, say, hey, ask me as the chairperson or councilman doer, can we have more explanation for this? Because we want to make sure that you understand everything that we do, so that when you do your project comment forms, that, you're giving great project, whether you're doing a recommendation or you recommend approval, or you would like to see something change. So, but great job to everybody today. It was a difficult meeting. This is one of the longest ones we've had in a really long time.
It's a record.
I just want everybody to know that as we move forward and more things come forward with Ranch Hera and maybe the canyons, we are going to have some more difficult meetings ahead of us. So great job, everybody. And with that, if nobody else has any other comments by the board members tonight? No? Then I'd like to make a motion. Did anybody like to move to adjourn? Second? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Good job, everyone.